Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, I should say. It is now 6:03 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order for ANC2C, representing Chinatown, Penn Quarter, and the downtown ANC area. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's community meeting. We have on the call this evening, we have Commissioner Ellie Miskey from 2C02 and Commissioner Gigi Nelson from 2C03. And I am Michael Schenkel from 2C01. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's meeting. We have 3 of 3 commissioners present, so we do have a quorum tonight at our meeting of a duly noticed meeting. And I would like to quickly just review the agenda with everybody. And Ellie, I can open that if you like.
I just have to pull it. I just got everything else downloaded, but I just have to open up the agenda now. So 1 minute.
I forgot there was an agenda to be pulled.
Yeah, I think this, I'm just not positive I think this is the most updated one. I see the Norton in Your Neighborhood event on it. And that is, nope, that's the one I sent you. I think you actually sent the most recent one to my personal email, so I might have to take it. If you want to share that, and then I'll share when we get to the other documents, that might be better.
I'll go ahead and do that. Terrific. So tonight's agenda, we will have some community announcements to start with from the mayor's office. We are anticipating Council Member Brooke Pinto, who will be joining us to provide an update on the legislative session. We will hear from MPD 1 and MPD 2 about policing issues and district crime and awareness issues in the area. We will have a presentation this evening from DDOT talking about the 2020 accomplishments that they have undertook, and for the 2021 goals that they have upcoming. We do have 2 community events. One, the Marine Corps Marathon, and Norton in Your Neighborhood presentation, which we'll discuss when we get there. We have 3 ABRA license to review this evening, as well as a public space, request for public space permit. And we will be ending this evening talking about planning, zoning, environment, and historic presentation, where we have 2 issues that will come before the commission tonight as well. I have one addition to the agenda that I would like to make. I would like for us to, after the treasurer's report tonight, discuss and vote on the change of address for the ANC, and also to discuss the posting of a job announcement for the ANC as well. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Then do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Awesome. So 3 of 3 approve the agenda. Have you had an opportunity to review the February 2021 minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific. Are there any changes to those minutes or corrections?
No.
And do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Terrific. The minutes, the February 20 21 minutes are approved, 3-3-0. Treasurer's report.
So, can we come back to that? I was so busy doing
Sure.
so many other things, I missed that. So
Sure, most definitely, not a problem. At the ANC, so a challenge that has emerged with the ANC is that tech world post office has closed and has remained closed now. This is going on 4 years that this location would have been closed. And this is where the ANC's post office box is currently located. The post office box has been transferred to the post office by Union Station. And there was a discussion between commissioners that we would like to have the mailbox more easily accessible to the commission within the ANC or very close to the ANC. And Gigi, do you want to describe what you have done thus far?
sure. So basically what we're planning to do is open up a PO box at the UPS store, which is at 455 Mass Avenue. It's not technically in our ANC, but it's right across the street. And so it's super convenient for us. So that's the plan, is to open it up there and then have that be the mailing address for the ANC. And then the physical address, of course, will be the ANC office. I think that's pretty much it, unless there's anything else.
So we just have to take an official vote
yeah.
on the process.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you said that. So yeah, so that is, it's a voting issue, so we do have to take a vote on it. So can I have a motion to approve the obtaining of a new PO box?
Are you making a motion?
Do I need to do that?
Yes, you do.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, so okay, so I'll make the motion for the ANC to get a new PO box.
Second.
Okay. Terrific. So there is a motion for the ANC to get a new PO box and a second on that. And this PO box will be opened at the 455 Mass Avenue UPS store.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So that motion carries. So the ANC will be securing that new mailing address as well. The second order of business was related to our minute takers job announcement. We have been informed by the Office of ANC that our minute taker is currently outside of our ANC or SMD, and that there is a desire by the Office of the ANC to have that person reside within the boundaries of our ANC, if possible. We had attempted, when we recruited the current minute taker, we had attempted to recruit that person from within the ANC boundaries and have not been able to do that successfully last time, but we'd like to try again at that. And I would like to make a motion that the ANC post the job announcement for our minute taker to attempt to secure an individual within within ANC2C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. We'll be posting that announcement on our website and distributing it through our email. So if individuals are interested or they know someone who's interested in taking the minutes of our meetings, that would be greatly appreciated. At this time, I'd like to move to the Ward 2's Mayor Liaison, Joe Florio.
Hi, hi, good evening. My name's Joe Florio. I am the Ward 2 Liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I'm going to drop my contact information, my cell number, and my email address in case anyone needs to get in touch with me about any issue or have any questions. I believe my information is also in the agenda for tonight. I'm going to keep this brief since there are a few presentations tonight. My one update is on the vaccination registration process beginning on Wednesday, tomorrow morning. Wednesday, March 10th, the district will switch over to a pre-registration system for making vaccination appointments. And so under this new system, individuals will be able to provide their information to DC Health and through a pre-registration website or by calling the district's call center. As of now, we're still in this phase of asking folks who are eligible for the vaccine to go and get an appointment. And so at this time, we're still, only asking those eligible residents. Basically, as appointments are made available, and individuals who have pre-registered will receive an email, a phone call, or a text message alerting them they will have an opportunity to make a vaccination appointment. And you'll have that opportunity for 48 hours to respond to that. And if you miss that window, you'll need to wait until the next time you are selected by the system. So in short, that's the new change coming shortly tomorrow morning. And then for the first week, invitations for those who pre-registered for this will go out on Friday, March 12th and on Monday, March 15th. But then moving past the first week, moving forward, invitations will be sent out on Thursday, Sunday, and Tuesdays by 10 a.m. And so, and we're also continuing this posture of priority zip codes on, Thursdays, and then moving into the entire city the day after. So if you all have any questions there, I know a lot of answers can be found at vaccinate.dc.gov, which I put in the chat. And if not, please send me an email if you need any clarity, or give me a phone call. But that's it for my updates.
Thanks so much, Joe. And I really appreciate your update about our critical incident that happened over the weekend as well. And Joe has been very proactive in helping to address a number of issues in the ANC. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And tomorrow morning, Joe and I and some others are going to be visiting an alleyway. I believe that's still on at 10 o'clock, the alleyway just north of 8th Street between 6th and 5th Streets to discuss some challenges that have been happening with the alleyway regarding garbage, litter, drainage issues that are occurring in that area. So thank you for doing that and coordinating that. Are there any questions for the mayor's office?
Just a quick clarifying question regarding vaccines. It's my understanding that once someone secures an appointment, they're responsible to work with the location that they get that first dose, if it's a 2-dose vaccination, to schedule their second. So I just wanted to check that that's correct and kind of highlight that for anyone here, because I have heard of a few people having issues getting that second appointment. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So once you receive your first appointment and get the shot, you will get a message to register for your second appointment. And so I know that, you can pretty much do that immediately when you're kind of in the waiting area. You need to wait for like 15 minutes after you get the first shot to observe any side effects that may happen. You can do it very fast in that moment. You'll also receive a phone call as well to remind you or to ask if you had been able to set up an appointment. So yeah, information should follow in an email once you register.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
And I do really appreciate that there's a pre-registration process for this that allows individuals to enter all that information into the system. And I'm assuming that will be saved for if you didn't get an appointment or it wasn't available, that it would be somehow retained in there.
I hope so. I don't. I will need to actually look that up. So I could follow up with that information to Commissioner Schenkel.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, because I know that people had been indicating that as you enter data, it is sometimes lost if you do not have, if you don't get an appointment at that time, or the location you select. I know these go very quickly, and that if you have to go back and select another location, it kind of, you lose all that data and information. So that'd be very helpful.
Yep, I can follow up on that.
Terrific. Thank you.
Could I say something about that, please?
Yes.
Hi, this is Shay Knowles at my 916G. Hi. There was a change of location for my second dose, and when the phone call came, my cell phone said potential spam, so I did not answer it. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, but I just want to put it out there as a warning that you might not so quickly not answer your potential spam calls, just in case.
Yeah, no, and that's a great flag. I'll send that note over to my team so that way they can let the folks at DC Health know.
Okay, thanks.
Michael, may I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Thank you. Hi, Joe. Suzanne Softy, Pennsylvania. I have a quick follow-on. I was able to get an appointment for this past Monday, and it was a remarkably great process, very efficient. Everybody there was so kind, and it was really a very positive experience. They told me that just to show up in 3 weeks, same time and location, all that. So for those of us that got in before the system changeover, nothing's going to change from that perspective in terms of we just show up for the second dose as we were directed, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if you've already made an appointment, you know, you should be good to go. But if there's anything odd that you have a question about, feel free to ask.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Terrific. Any other additional questions? Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate that. I appreciate your engagement. At this time, we'd like to move on to, I saw Council Member Pinto on our line, and I'd like to welcome her to ANC2C. And I lead you on your way of our discussion.
Thank you very much, Chair Schenkel. Great to be with you all tonight. Nice to see Commissioners Nelson and Miskey as well. And want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with me and share the priorities you all have for your roles and representing your constituents. I just want to follow up on the question you asked, Commissioner Schenkel. That is one of the main points of the pre-registration system, is that so that the data is not lost. And so residents can be confident that when you enter your data in the registration system, it will save all of that data and then let you know when you're invited back to the portal to try to secure an appointment. If during the securing an appointment process, you're unable to make an appointment, that data is different. But for your entering your address and your name and your qualifications, things like that, that's the main point of the pre-registration system, so that you don't have to keep adding to it. So hopefully that goes off well tomorrow. And thank you, Joe.
Uh-oh.
for that update, all of your work on that. So I just want to provide, what's been going on.
I think we lost you just a bit. You faded out on us.
Am I back?
You are back, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me know if that happens again. So I will just provide a brief update on some of what has been going on at the council and some updates you all need to know about, and then happy to answer any questions that anybody has. As we engage with performance oversight and then the budget coming up, our three primary legislative priorities continue to be around affordable housing, moving more of our neighbors into homelessness, moving more of our neighbors experiencing homelessness into housing, criminal justice reform and improving public safety, and support and recovery for our small businesses. And those continue to be our kind of guiding lights with the budget, with performance oversight, and with legislation that we are pursuing. Some of you may have seen that last week the council passed the Coronavirus Support Emergency Amendment, which authorizes the mayor to extend the public health emergency through May 20th. We are expecting we may see that in the next week or two, but we have not seen that from her yet. We are in the middle of performance oversight with all the district agencies. We've been going to as many of them as we possibly can, usually multiple a day. And it's been a great opportunity to hear from the public, meet with agency directors, and all of those conversations are really informing our work with the budget moving forward. Thank you so much to those of you who attended our Ward 2 budget community meeting last week. If you still have thoughts you'd like to share on Ward 2 priorities for the budget, you can email it to Ella Hansen on our team this month. Her email address is ehansen@dccouncil.us. And Brian Romanowski from my team is here with us today. If I can ask Brian to put Ella's email in the chat box. The council has also extended the mayor's budget submission date from the end of March until April 22nd. This is exciting because it's going to allow the mayor to incorporate the $2.2 billion of federal relief into the budget, which we're really enthusiastic about, will enable and speed up a lot of our recovery efforts for the budget this year. So the council is still working on an updated budget schedule, but we will be sure to share that schedule with you all through our newsletter, and would love to hear more of you testify at those public hearings coming up. Again, if you don't sign up for our newsletter, you can do so on the homepage of our website, which is brookpintodc.com. So we have some general transportation updates, and I know Andrew DeFrank is here, so I'll let him speak about their plan, but just wanted to flag for everybody that Pothole Palooza and Alley Palooza are beginning this month, where DDOT will take input and recommendations from neighbors around necessary pothole and alley repairs. So make sure to get those requests in. We had oversight with DDOT a week and a half ago, and we spoke about public trash cans. We spoke about the need for longer pedestrian crosswalks and additional projects that were in place and ongoing. We are very concerned about WMATA's proposed budget cuts. I testified at their meeting last night, but the public can still submit comments through their public survey link until Tuesday, March 16th at 5 p.m., which is a week from tonight. So I encourage you all to consider making your voices heard and known. I am, continuing to make the argument that we need to delay any cuts, especially until we can implement the $1.4 billion from the federal government that will go towards WMATA and a lot of our public transit options, because these cuts would just be really devastating. On the legislative front, we are working on legislation for small business recovery to expand Great Streets. We have a hearing date pending for our minor consent to HIV healthcare bill. We've co-introduced legislation around senior citizens' real property tax relief, white supremacy and policing prevention, comprehensive cannabis bill, and amplified noise amendment. As Joe already talked a little bit about the pre-registration system, which is going to go live tomorrow. We know how frustrating the issues with the vaccine portal have been. We continue to monitor it closely. I'm hoping that tomorrow goes off seamlessly, but if it doesn't, we will be following up with DC Health and doing everything we can to streamline the process through DC Health. President Biden has set a goal of mid-May for all adults in the US to receive the vaccine. And so we continue to be hopeful that with more vaccine supply that we'll get in the district, that we'll be able to return to some semblance of normalcy, hopefully by this summer. I just wanted to mention a quick note about redistricting. We will not have the census data until September of this year, and the city will be undergoing a redistricting process. I am not serving on the redistricting committee. The chairman of the council does not want board members to be involved in that process. And so it will be chaired by Alyssa Silverman, at-large council member, and she'll have a committee to do that work. And so, of course, would love to hear from you all if you have thoughts or preferences around redistricting, but it is not up to our office on how that moves forward. And so I'd recommend that you reach out to Councilmember Silverman's office with redistricting related concerns. And then lastly, just a couple of 2C specific updates. I know that there's been a lot of concerns around the security perimeter around the Capitol. I see we have a representative here tonight as well, and we have continued to ask Congresswoman Norton's office, but I know she's supportive of this as well, and countless DC residents are asking that the fencing be scaled back or removed entirely. The Capitol is not only federal property, but it's also regulated by congressional leadership and Capitol Police. And due to the recent threats on members of Congress and the Biden administration, Secret Service, and the National Guard, they're urging that the perimeter remain until the violent rhetoric is scaled back. And so I know that we would all like to see this burden removed from our city as soon as possible, and we will remain on top of this to make that viewpoint shared. The pandemic has also reduced the level of some of the crime that we've seen throughout the city, but grand theft, auto, and carjackings have steadily continued to be an issue that our residents are dealing with, and want to continue to advise neighbors to not leave your vehicle running or unattended for any period of time. We've also seen a major impact to our local businesses downtown and in Chinatown, and we're working on trying to secure additional relief for those businesses that had to close due to no fault of their own during the inauguration. And so that is a kind of multi-pronged approach that I'm working on now in conjunction with Congresswoman Norton's office and the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. We also know that there's been a major increase in vacant office spaces and buildings in the downtown area, and we are working closely with the ANC and with the BID to incentivize leasing up of that space and to improve our affordable housing options downtown. So with that, I will stop and happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Thanks so much.
Thank you so very much for that update. I really appreciate it. I'm wondering if you can talk any about the noise ordinance legislation that was proposed. I know that just with reading over that, I have some concerns because downtown is typically not zoned residential, and I interpreted the legislation as only a residential zoned area that it would impact. I could be wrong on that, but I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Sure. So let me just say first that the music industry and musicians are a huge part of our culture in the District of Columbia, and one that I value immensely. The noise ordinances and laws are extremely complicated currently. They're hard to follow. They lead to unclear enforcement at different times of the day and different locations in the city. But generally, it says that you can make noise using anything really up to 60 decibels. There's an exception for that if it's amplified noise, where you can basically
interrupt council member people. Could everyone put themselves on mute? We're getting some background noise coming through.
Enter your meeting ID followed by.
Thank you.
I got it.
Thank you. So there's an exception to that if it's amplified noise that says you could basically make any noise you want. There's an exception to that exception that says unless you're in these very specific residential zones. So what this bill aims to do, and to be frank with you, we are still working on the language because the statute itself needs kind of a complete overhaul to make it clearer, is to say, if you have amplified noise, just like really any other noise, you should be limited to 90 decibels of volume in everywhere. And the reason why it's so unclear to read the language of the current statute is because we were amending an already extremely complicated regulation. And so we expanded the residential zones, but it does still apply to downtown, Commissioner Schenkel. But we are working on the rewrite to make sure that's very clear. Just for a point of reference, 90 decibels is the same as a engine of a motorcycle right next to your ear, which if you're exposed to it for less than an hour, it can cause serious damage and bodily harm. And so this is not to say that there will be no music any longer or noise in our city. This is just standardizing our amplified noise requirements and rules. Something else that I would like to see, and that we're working on the language of the bill as well, is to have this enforced by the mayor's office of nightlife and culture. Because we see right now that it's partially enforced by DCRA, it's partially enforced by MPD, and it's very unclear, and it's not standardized. And so we're hopeful that with a move like that to a different agency who can always have enforcement over it, we will see some improvement and see fairness in dealing with amplified noise.
Great, thank you.
I also had a couple follow-up questions, just two. The first is I was at the budget hearing and I think it was great. I think it was a great opportunity for people to give feedback. And I was just hoping you could explain a little more how it worked to anyone on the call who may be interested but might be intimidated by the idea of speaking at one of those meetings. I thought it was pretty accessible and informal, and people were able to speak pretty freely. So I was just hoping you can emphasize that in case there's anyone who is interested.
Sure. So kind of zooming out a little bit in the way that the budget works is that the mayor and her team are coming up with their proposed budget for fiscal year 2022, which starts October 1st of this year. Once they do that, the mayor will send her budget to the council for our review in April. We have hearings with all of the agencies going over what their budget needs are, where there could be additional efficiencies, where they may need increased funding to support important programs. And then the council will pass our budget, which will be based upon the mayor's budget, but there may be movement around. And then we'll pass that budget over the summer. Throughout the hearings in the budget, we often hear from public witnesses and still encourage people to do so and to testify. But I and my office wanted to make sure that we had an additional opportunity for Ward 2 residents to speak to us directly about their Ward 2 budget priorities, because that way when we are advocating for Ward 2, for the mayor's budget, as well as to all of my colleagues on the council for things that are important to Ward 2 and our city, we could make sure that those discussions are informed directly by our residents.
Great. And I just had one other question. You mentioned the proposed cuts to the metro and the option for people to fill out a survey to try to give their opinions on that. And I was just hoping you could elaborate a little bit on what the cuts are and when those would be going into effect, in case people aren't familiar.
Sure. And if Brian, if I can ask you to put, he's already put that in there. The WMATA public survey is in the chat if anybody would like to see it. So there are a number of dozens of service line cuts, bus routes, ridership to hours. And I don't want to speak too soon because it just seems so alarming. But I remain hopeful that we'll be able to stop these cuts if we all make our voices heard and make sure that we at least wait until we have the federal funding to implement them. WMATA, I've kind of heard two things. I think when it comes to when it would take effect, I've heard that it could be as early as this summer, but that part of their major budget is around when they'll start October 1st again for the fiscal year. So I think they're still working out some of those details to see how much funding they have to extend the service lines as long as possible, which is why it's even more important that we all make our voices heard now so that those budget cuts don't go into effect, which will affect our ridership.
Thank you.
I have one additional point that I thought of that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of as you were thinking about relief to small businesses. In ANC2C 01 in particular, we had a number of small businesses that opened right as the pandemic was starting to gear up. And they have really been excluded from those businesses in particular have been excluded from any federal support during this time. And those businesses operated throughout the pandemic, trying to scale and modifying their business plans, et cetera, to be successful. Does any of the new funding that is being proposed address those businesses that may not have been fully operational to show all the records that they would need before the pandemic?
Interesting. And you mean the new funding through the USSBA or the district's plans for our
the district's plans?
So I don't know the answer to that. I think that DEMPED was following the guidelines of Small Business Administration in large part because it was just kind of easier to collect proof from businesses around their payroll and their rent. But now that we have a year under our belt, I think that's a really interesting and good point that it is inadvertently excluded businesses from that relief. And so we would be happy to follow up with DEMPED about that and see if they could expand their eligibility with new grants that are coming. I think, a lot of the existing grants, particularly around the Bridge Fund, there are so many applicants, so those kind of eligibility requirements were already determined. But as we get more funding and as we look at this budget for small business recovery, I think that will be a really good opportunity to expand those eligibility requirements, both by policy and by language in the authorizing statute.
Great, thank you.
I have a question, and I got on late, so I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Okay. It has to do with the arts, because the arts often don't have a fixed venue. They may have an address, but you don't see them like you see a store. And yet we've had a number of arts venues in the neighborhood, both, I would say, big arts like the National Theater, the Warner Theater, but also small places like the arts that were in the National Studio building on the first 2 floors. So I'm wondering if this effort on the part of the City Council includes the arts in their consideration for funding, and if any of the arts groups in the neighborhood were approached and found out about this and were able to apply for the funding or any other funding, actually, because I think they contribute a lot to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Joanne, for sharing that. And it's such an important point around the arts needing additional support. And I completely agree. They really make our community whole, and they need support just like many other small businesses. They have been included in many different types of relief that the city has been providing, one of which was dispersed through DC events. And they were being very proactive in their outreach to make sure that they reached out to local community centers, cultural spaces, museums, to make them aware of funding opportunities. And so many downtown were the beneficiaries of those initial grants as early as last April, right after we got some of these grants up and running. And so that's an important piece for us to keep in mind for our longer term recovery, to make sure that the funding opportunities and grant opportunities are as inclusive as possible, so that we don't just help one sector recover. So thank you for that point.
Thank you for that. And I apologize for not being at meetings before for quite some time, but I was not doing very well about anything.
Not a problem. I'm sorry to hear.
Surviving.
Glad that you're here now.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question, Maura Donlin, for Councilwoman Pinto. And how are you? It's so wonderful to see you. And it's great to see you in 2021, which is, but my question was specifically about the sound legislation. You spoke about 90 decibels, and I will say that 90 decibels is unhealthy, which you referred to. So I was just wondering how you ended up there, and then how we can address the fact that if you hear it over a long amount of time, which we do, it can be permanently damaging to your hearing.
I second that.
Well, thank you for the question. It's a major concern, and I know it's a big concern downtown, especially with the continued noise, the continued music, because we know of the long-term effects, as I mentioned. We have been thinking about some additional language that makes it more clear. Like, there was one version of the bill that had it set at, if it's audible, reasonably audible down the street. And then we heard some pushback that if you make the standard reasonably audible, who's going to be determining what reasonable is? If it's a reasonable ear, is that person inside a building, inside their apartment, outside? And so that language ended up not being included in this draft. I will say, I believe that these types of introductions are a starting point. They are an opportunity to engage the community, to hear from everybody, to hear from residents like you who may be concerned that that is too loud of a standard, to hear from bands who may be concerned that without the ability to play, it may hinder their livelihood. This is the point of the legislative process, to have these discussions, to work out collectively these compromises, which is why I was saying earlier that, frankly, a lot of the language is still in flux, because in amending the statute, we realized the whole statute really needs a rewrite. And so I would be happy to work with you, Maura, as well, and kind of hear about your experience and make sure that we're getting the balance right in the ultimate legislation.
Wonderful. And I really appreciate that. And I also wanted to reiterate that, like you, we very much support the right and the ability of street performers to be able to play, and it makes DC a wonderful city. So there's no issue there. It's just an issue of health, both your hearing and then also your mental health. And I will say that 90 is way too high for the musicians themselves. So very much welcome the prospect of being able to work with you and your staff, because those decibel levels, other cities don't have them that high either. So we can show that information and very much appreciate that this is an opening salvo and we can stay in dialogue, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. And if I may, Commissioner Schenkel, just comment on one more thing that Maura just mentioned, which is an important point around mental health. This legislation is timely and important that we focus on this now, in large part because of the pandemic, because so many people are working and learning from home. It's not something that we can wait on. And so that's why it's really important that we got it introduced so we can keep having these public dialogues and get this balance right.
Michael?
And, we have Tom Lee. You have your hand up.
Yeah, this is Thomas. Good. Councilor Pinto, thank you for joining us this evening. As you know, Ward 2 kind of bears the brunt of the growing homeless problem in the city. I'd be interested in hearing what your thoughts are and what the city is planning on doing to help mitigate that issue, since it does impact, greatly our quality of life.
Absolutely, and thank you, Thomas. So, as I mentioned at the top, one of our top priorities is moving as many people as possible into housing. And so we're doing this through a number of different programs and trying to really assist in this issue at every vantage point. So one of the first things that we did last summer was fund over $5 million of additional permanent supportive housing vouchers. And so those vouchers are much more successful for long-term success in housing because it provides additional wraparound services and supports for our neighbors so that people don't just enter rapid rehousing or a temporary 1-year voucher program only to be back on the street and left without housing the next year. And so we're confident that the permanent supportive housing voucher program leads to much longer term success. But we know that it's not just a matter of funding, it's also a matter of direct services and care. And so we've been working in coordination with a myriad of agencies that exist in DC doing this work and trying to limit the amount of operation in silos that was going on so that all the agencies are speaking with one another, like DHS, DMHHS, Encampments Coordinator, the Department of Behavioral Health, and MPD to make sure that residents aren't always clear who they should call when for what services. And that's something that we've been really focused on. The third piece that I'll say that gives me some hope for longer term meaningful success and impact in this area is that the federal government has pretty strict standards for what constitutes an entitlement versus what constitutes discretionary spending. And so things that are entitlements like SNAP, food stamps, TANF, if a resident is eligible, if they meet the eligibility requirements, they automatically get the benefit. Whereas when it comes to housing assistance, that's a discretionary fund. And so only 25% of district residents who are eligible for housing assistance actually get it. And President Biden has indicated that he does believe that housing assistance should become an entitlement and not discretionary funding, which could be the single most effective strategy this country and the city has to helping our neighbors experiencing homelessness and moving them into housing as quickly as possible. And so I think that's another area that we can all rally around and behind and advocate for the federal government to do so and provide that funding. I know I just said lastly, but one other thing I just want to say is we have $200 million from the federal government for housing support, and we are working on dispersing that now in the next couple of months. And a big piece of that is to ensure that we prevent additional evictions and that we move people into housing. And that's a lot of what my work is focused on in the mayor's strike force on rental housing market that I serve on, as well as our work on the housing committee. So it's a frustrating short-term answer in that we are working on it. There are a bunch of different pieces of the strategy, but I do have hope that over the long term with some of these changes, we'll be able to make a meaningful impact in more of our neighbors' lives.
Councilmember Pinto. Oh, yes, Joanne.
Yeah, Howard Marks here. I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. I do have, I'm going back to the noise thing. I'm sorry I missed the early discussion, but I know this is an issue that we've been working on for 2 years now. And I don't know if you have seen any of the earlier drafts of legislation on this, but
I'm going to go this way.
But what I was going to say is just that the level of noise was never as high as what you have now as the starting point. And that bothered me a lot when I heard that, because I'm wondering now how we can get a copy of the legislation that the council is now considering, which may be very different from what earlier drafts have been done.
Mm-hmm. So we included a link to the legislation in our newsletter last week. Joanne, do you receive our newsletters?
I don't know, because I have not been on the computer for a while. I had some health issues that took priority. I mean, I'm alive now, so that was my main concern, actually. And it sounds sort of dramatic, but it really was dramatic.
So I will be, I'll be happy to post that and send that to you, Joanne. And for others, I will post that on our ANC website in our blog section.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Howard Marks will be our last discussion point this evening. Howard?
Yeah, so thank you, Councilman Pinto, for your service and for your willingness to meet with us at the Residential Gallery Place to go over this noise legislation. This is the #1 issue that the 300 residents here face: declining property values, degradation of quality of life because of this issue. And we definitely appreciate the fact you were an original co-sponsor of the Mendelson legislation. We want to work with you. Thank you so much for that. I want to turn briefly to the other major issue that we face, and that is the open air drug market that occurs outside our building. And I know you mentioned the cannabis legislation, and also we have the police budget coming up for review, and we have the nomination hearing for Acting Chief Conte coming up, I think, later this week. We met with Neil Albert from the downtown bid, and we told him that we're not going to get any resolution of this open market, drug market, until the U.S. Attorney's Office agrees to prosecute drug sellers who sell less than half a pound of cannabis, which is now the standard used by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we need your help with this. Mr. Albert's going to meet with representatives of the U.S. Attorney's Office. He promises us to discuss this issue with them. But we're not talking about the issue of decriminalization of possession of cannabis, but rather the sale. And this sale goes on openly here 24/7 outside our door. And it's very disruptive, and it's a degradation of our quality of life, and also very threatening that this kind of criminal activity is going on with the police watching, and they can't do anything about it. So, Councilmember Pinto, we need your help to approach the U.S. Attorney's Office to get some relief on this issue. Because Commander Kane, we met with Commander Kane, First District Commander, and she wants to do something about it, but her hands are tied. Thank you. I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Howard, and thank you for all of your advocacy and engagement around the noise bill as well. So just briefly, and I know, Chair Schenkel, you've got a big agenda, so I'll try not to drone on too long, but first, I'm sorry that you all have been dealing with that. Drug activities is not acceptable. I did meet with the U.S. Attorney's Office about this issue, particularly in Chinatown. I will say I don't think that it's that MPD's hands are tied. It still is illegal to sell drugs. But it is something that I'm really hopeful and enthusiastic about with our cannabis legislation that we introduced, because creating a legal adult use recreational marketplace for cannabis takes things into the regulated market, just like anything else in the regulated market, which has a lot of benefits for our tax base. It has benefits for our criminal justice reform effort, and it has benefits to decrease the illegal drug activity that continues to go on basically in broad daylight, as you're highlighting. And so we are hopeful that this legislation is a really important first step in all of those efforts, and hope that we can have your support in getting that across the finish line soon.
Well, thank you. And let us know if we could approach other members, especially the at-large members, to get them to co-sponsor your legislation, because I think this is a win-win for everyone. So let us know what we need to do to help you, Councilman. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Will do. All right. Well, Chair Schenkel, I hear you. I see the eye. Just want to thank you so much for having me, and congratulations again to Commissioner Miskey and Commissioner Nelson. Welcome to the commission, and I'm looking forward to working with the rest of you. Stay engaged as we go through this budget process, and have a wonderful evening.
Awesome. Thank you so very much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate you sharing, and come back anytime you want. You know, we would love that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to, is someone from, I think I saw Captain Doro on from MPD1.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hey, how are you doing?
Wow.
Good.
We've been getting some work done.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Interesting stuff. Talk about the stats real quick in the 1D area. We've been doing really well. Kind of continuing the trend of significant declines both in violent crime and property crime. Compared to last year, over the last 30 days, we only had 2 violent crimes compared to 7 the year prior, and property crime was down 29%. We're seeing declines in every category. The council member had mentioned the hop-ins and the thefts, the stolen cars, and that has been a problem. It has quieted down quite a bit recently, and especially in your area of town, we've seen far less activity. We did stand up the carjacking task force. They've been doing some work, and we've had a lot of good arrests. And especially in our district, we've had a lot of good arrests. Really, the patrol officers out there, finding these suspects. A lot of them are juveniles, and you know that can be challenging, and that's something that I think the city's going to have to look at as we move into this next, this new era of criminal justice. How those, wrap around ongoing services for these juveniles that are going to be released back into the community, how that looks. So we'll see. But right now things are moving in the right direction there. Specifically the violent crimes, I wanted to mention one was a assault with intent to rob in the 600 block of H Street. We have a really good lookout and a bolo out for that suspect where, we're trying to find him. And then the other, that was just he approached someone on the street and demanded some property and acted like he might have a weapon, but none was seen. So it was just kind of your basic street robbery type situation. Nothing was obtained, thankfully, but we still treat that as a violent crime. And then the other one was that there was a stabbing inside of the William Hill facility, which you probably heard about. They usually have part-time officers working there from MPD. They did not at that time. We're kind of trying to figure out why they didn't exactly that time. It might be due to the increased deployments that we have had and that continued for us regarding the Capitol incident and civil disturbance. Sometimes there aren't any officers available to work part-time. I know they've run into that a couple of times. So that might be the case, but we're following up on that. They did have several security officers working, SPOs, special police officers, unarmed though. So the thing went down pretty quickly. It was an argument between two guys that came in together, so they might be known to each other. It kind of escalated very, very quickly into physical confrontation. One gentleman was stabbed, non-life threatening. They then ran outside. You know, we had an officer in the immediate area within a block. So, but the guy didn't get away. Again, we have good video footage of that incident and of the suspect. So that's out there. The victim in that case was completely uncooperative. He would not even give us his name. So we don't even know who he is. Not even to the hospital that stitched him up, he didn't give his name. So that's where we are with that. We have good evidence, but not a great complainant in that case. So we'll see where it goes. Those were the two violent crimes. And I'll speak briefly, you know, to the drug dealing that was mentioned. That is, I think we've been pretty consistent that we do see that as definitely our wheelhouse and our issue to address in Chinatown is the drug dealing, and we do not accept it. It's not that our hands are tied. I think the councilwoman is correct. We have been making drug arrests. We do it, you know, on a weekly. We have pretty decent drug arrests. I think how they're papered and prosecuted is something to look at, probably because there's not a whole lot of repercussions at the back end usually, unless you can make it like a big federal case, which isn't happening with these street level, you know, cases. Hopefully our officers are not just watching, you know, drug deals go down. That is definitely not our expectation. So if you see that is happening, please let me know, because the officers should be intervening if there's, you know, if the drug transactions are being observed. I will say that it's not as easy as you may think for us to just say, oh yeah, they're dealing drugs. They're very aware of where we are, what we can do, what we can take action on. There's very specific things we have to be able to articulate to make a drug arrest. Just a hand-to-hand is not enough. You have to be able to articulate that based on your experience, it was narcotics. You have to be able to articulate that you saw currency exchange hands. So that's not always easy. A lot of the times they'll have different folks, you know, they'll have one guy inside. Well, I guess the Chipotle is closed now, isn't it? But they'll have one guy inside of an establishment or around the corner, and there'll be several folks involved. So a lot of times for us to really address it in a comprehensive manner, we would need a full team just doing that. And it's very resource heavy. Despite all that, the patrol officers are making arrests. A lot of what we're seeing is amphetamines now in Chinatown. So it's not just marijuana. And I don't think legalizing marijuana is not going to solve your problem there, at least not completely, because it's a lot of pills, a lot of amphetamines, and really not huge quantities, you know. So that's what we're seeing. We are continuing to talk about it. We would like to step up our efforts a bit get some officers in the area and patrol that have more experience doing drug work. We have great officers, and your Chinatown crew is really good, but that's one area where we could maybe have some impact, is getting some officers that have that experience, because it is a specific skill set. And we do have one guy on day work now that has been making just the one officer that has a background in working in narcotics. He's made quite a difference, I think, earlier in the day. So that's where we are with that, and we're still working on it, and happy to continue the conversation.
Right. Thank you. And I just had a question about the William Hill location. They can hire officers who are armed, can they not? Like, that are not MPD officers, if MPD wasn't available?
Yes, they could, yes.
Okay.
But usually special police officers are armed. They have full police powers within the business. I will say that William Hill, they're very cooperative. They're very communicative. We've already set up follow-up meetings with them. They set up metal detectors the next day. So they now have metal detectors. Anyone that goes in has to go through them, empty their pockets, no bags. So they're very much on the front foot about it, in my opinion. We were very concerned when they moved in, because there wasn't a whole lot of conversation beforehand. But this is really the first incident of note that has happened in there. And them hiring part-time officers, I think, has been very proactive.
Yeah.
And they, that day they closed for the rest of the day after it happened.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
that's great.
So I think they've been, you know, they're good partners, let me say that.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is that the security, the SPOs, they're actually being run and hired through Monumental, through the stadium itself, not through Willingham. So the stadium is providing those for Willingham.
Gotcha. Terrific. Commissioners, do you have other questions for Captain Duro?
I don't. Thank you, Captain Duro.
No, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the community for Captain Duro?
Yeah, I had one question. I don't know if you see me, Michael. It's Joanne.
Yes, Joanne, go ahead.
With the pandemic, have you seen a real difference? I mean, to me, I have been out on the street only to go from the door here to a car door to go to a doctor. So I haven't been really out and about, but I never see anyone anymore. So I'm wondering if you've had a significant reduction from during the pandemic, I'd say the last several months over the year before, or has there been more thefts and stuff because there's not enough people on the street to bother them or something?
Yeah, and this is something we've kind of been talking about throughout the pandemic. Our numbers are far lower, especially in the Chinatown area and the downtown area. I mean, we're running like 50% decreases across the board in crime. So it's been far less crime. I will say manpower has been, for the most part, been less because we've been pulled so much over the last year, really, with protests and the Capitol incident. You know, our manpower has been stretched very thin, and you've had less officers in Chinatown, really, to be honest, except for when those civil disturbance units are actually staging in Chinatown, which has happened fairly often as well. And then you'll have, you know, a whole group of 30 of them. So that's been the picture. One thing we have discussed here and in other meetings is that there has been a growing sense of disorder on the streets, though, and more kind of quality of life problems. You know, drug use, panhandling, urinating in public, all that stuff. At least the sense in the community is that the sense of orderliness has very much decreased during this pandemic, is my understanding. So that is something we're aware of and, you know, concerned about as well, because we do see that as part of our mission to maintain order. However, again, with this new era of criminal justice, there's a lot of other agencies and that are now at the table and really, as we see it, at least, very much have a role to play in maintaining that public order if we're not going to do it by, you know, putting handcuffs on people. So,
awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of been the picture throughout the pandemic. And hopefully we'll enter the next phase here soon.
Great. Thank you. In an effort to get us back on schedule a little bit, thank you, Captain Darrell. I appreciate that. We're going to move on to MPD.
Michael, I have a question. Excuse me. This is an important question. I know you're running behind this, but you know, public safety in Chinatown is the #1 issue. So I have to ask this question. I'll make it very brief to Captain Duro. The first, Captain, is that I understand the crime that took place on H Street, the 600 block, that the victim was taken to Howard University Hospital with lacerations. Is that correct?
The one on F Street?
H is in Henry. Henry, the 600 block of H Street. You were told the victim was taken to Howard University Hospital for treatment. Are you aware of that?
Let me double check. I think he had a minor laceration on one of his fingers, is what it was. Let me double check that real quick. I'll message you that, but I don't. It wasn't a significant injury.
Okay. The other thing is in terms of getting evidence on these drug dealers. I'm looking out my window right now at the Capital One Bank. They have an ATM area that's enclosed. Those people are over there like all the time, dealing, selling drugs. You have surveillance cameras inside of that Capital One Bank ATM area. I'm sure the bank would be more than happy to cooperate with you to provide those tapes. And hopefully that will provide the evidence that you need. We had a drug deal going down in front of our building 2 days ago without any shame, exchanging of money, exchanging of drugs. and so on. So that's all I have to say. I know the schedule is behind, so I just want to throw that out.
Yeah, no, there has been a lot of activity in the ATM vestibules. We've been working directly with the banks. We have made a number of arrests for drugs in the ATM vestibules, Capital One, and also there's one up the street as well. Forget what bank it is. So we have been working on that. I will say, getting video of someone handing someone something else is not enough to initiate, a drug prosecution. You have to be able to say what kind of drug it was. You have to have probable cause. You have to be able to say that you saw actual money exchange hands. So look, we can all look at it and say, we all know what that is. And that's the frustrating part, right? We can watch it and we all know what's going on, but that is not enough for us to just go. It's probably enough if an officer sees it to go do a reasonable suspicion stop and investigate further. But that in itself is not enough to just arrest someone just getting video of something exchanging hands, you have to be able to say what kind of drugs it was, and you're not going to be able to do that just from seeing a hand to hand. So that's why it's a lot more challenging, I think, than folks might think.
Thank you, Captain Duro, for explaining the legal part of that again. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Is Lieutenant Hamlin with us, or someone from MPD2?
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
Not too bad. Good to see you again.
Good seeing you as well.
So, yeah, not to harp on everything Captain Duro spoke on. Our crime is also down significantly, and we believe it's in part due to coronavirus and, just the difference, the difference in amount of people coming and going to work every day. Again, the big things are, as of late, stolen autos, jump-ins, people leaving their keys in the car, running. No matter what they're doing, it's either for gas or just moving something in front of their house or making the delivery. We had one the other day, a guy parked his car in front of a business with his kid in the car so that he could go pick up his work check. And he left the car running with his kid in the car. So, time, luckily we got a call that time because it was a kid alone in a vehicle running and we were able to get there. The car wasn't actually stolen, but, that is the biggest problem we're having right now. And preventing these stolen autos will also help us reduce the amount of violent crimes such as robberies, carjackings, because a lot of times the stolen cars are used to commit these more serious offenses. So, you kind of slow one down, you're going to slow the other down because they're not going to have the tools they need to commit these other serious crimes. So that's the objective and the hope as well. And just to kind of reiterate the drug enforcement, I used to do some, we used to make arrests on dealers. And typically you would arrest the buyer and the dealer. But you usually need more than just a hand exchange. You have to physically be able to see money. You have to physically be able to see the drugs, and you have to know what kind of drugs it is before you actually make that stop and make that arrest, because seeing the money and the drugs is your probable cause to make those stops and make those arrests. And a lot of times these guys know the game. They know how to conceal it to where, and like Captain Duro was saying, even though we can tell what they're doing, we need more than just what they're doing. We need to have probable cause to make those stops and make those arrests. And that can be very challenging. And those usually take drug operations, which is, in part, the districts don't have drug operations anymore. They do have special units within the districts that do handle special crimes. But the drug units have been moved out of the districts and are centralized with our special investigation unit, which operates outside of the district. So we are still investigating drug and drug sales. We're just not doing it at the district level. And our officers, if they see a violation, if they have PC, even for a drug violation, they will address it, and they do. Like Captain Duro was saying, we do have, several drug arrests. Whether or not they make it through the courts is another question. Again, like Captain Duro had mentioned. So, but I know we've been here a long time today, so I'm going to stop there. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Great. Commissioners, have any questions for Captain Hamilton?
No, thank you, Captain Hamilton.
Very welcome, you guys.
That's terrific. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Awesome. And now we're moving on to DDOT 2020 accomplishments and 2021 goals. Andrew DeFrank.
Hey there, can you all see me?
Yes, we can. How are you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Good.
I think this is the first time I've been at 2C, so it's nice to see you all. My name is Andrew DeFrank. I'm the Ward 2 Community Engagement Specialist at DDOT. Me trying to share my screen here. Okay.
There you go. Perfect. Yes.
Great.
We can.
Sorry, this is taking me a minute longer to get up than it should. Well, I think we can do it like this. Y'all can see.
Yep.
I'm not going to press present. So like was mentioned, I'm giving a quick presentation that I'm giving to all ANCs in Ward 2 about DDOT, sort of a general sort of overview of services and some specific Ward 2 information about the last year and going forward. And so for some of you, this will probably be kind of a refresher of some basics about DDOT. And for some of you this might be your first ANC meeting or first ANC meeting with DDOT, a representative from DDOT coming, some of the information might be new. I'll mention a bunch of links in this, and I will share those links in the chat after I finish. And I will not be reading every single thing you see, but feel free to follow up afterwards. There'll be, I'll take questions at the end, things like that. So really quickly, going over some of DDOT's 2020 accomplishments. Couple things I just want to highlight, important things that happened in 2020. The default speed limit was set to 20 miles an hour. That, applies to local roads, unsigned routes. There's very few of those in 2C. Local roads are, predominantly on quieter residential streets. But that's something to keep in mind, and as part of the agency's commitment to safety, along with a number of other things that you see on this list. And just also wanted to highlight that we have a new director this year. Everett Lott is our interim director. He was previously the deputy director, and he took over when Jeff Meridian, who was our director until a couple months ago, took a job in the Biden administration. So Director Lott's really excited to hit the ground running. Some Ward 2 specific highlights from 2020. The 14th Street Northwest streetscape, was completed with the new bus islands, a couple other projects in Georgetown, protected bike lanes in Foggy Bottom, and we paved more than 20 miles of roadway in Ward 2 in 2020. This is a sort of organizing look, at DDOT services. As you can see, right, safety is our number one priority and houses a lot of sort of specific programs. There's a section down here for kind of thinking about, all the different ways that we maintain infrastructure and physical assets, from street lights to sidewalks and parking meters and all those things. Move DC is the sort of home for things like the circulator, the streetcar, Capital Bike Share. If you'll notice, they all kind of have a red and yellow color scheme. And those are sort of, physical transit vehicle type things that we operate. Urban forestry and trees and things like that are in quality of life. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, permits and parking regulations are all in PSRD, and everything else is in public space and curbside management. That's sort of, how you can think about how all those things work together. Couple of highlights about our response to the pandemic this past year. Car-free lanes were a really important program that we started last year to try and speed up bus trips for those who weren't able to work from home, still going to work physically, and take the bus. Usually lower income folks who don't drive and live in urban areas. We installed 3 of these last year on 14th Street Northwest in Columbia Heights, M Street Southeast, and MLK Avenue in Southeast as well. And we're excited to see how we can expand car-free lanes citywide and think about some new routes in 2021. Slow Streets and Streeteries, obviously these are really high profile things that we did last year. The Slow Streets program basically restricts already low traffic, low stress roads to local traffic only with these barriers you see. And the idea is to encourage people to be able to, get around physically distant, during the pandemic, be able to sort of dip into the street, walk, bike, run, not just on the sidewalk. And then obviously streeteries, everybody knows about streeteries. Just wanted to sort of mention those and let folks know that we're really excited to figure out ways to, expand, maintain, tweak the program, in this new stage of the pandemic we're going to enter as it gets warmer and vaccines keep rolling through, and then beyond. This is a quick overview of current projects happening in Ward 2. I'm not going to read through all of them, but this ranges from things that are about to be constructed. Actually, I think Rock Creek Park multi-use trail rehabilitation now is technically in construction as of like 2 days ago. So, but a lot of these are still, sort of deep in the design phase, but these are kind of the projects that we're working on. Capital projects refers to projects that move curb lines, take multiple years to design. They're sort of an order of magnitude more expensive than like a simple protected bike lane project that just adds new markings and maybe those plastic flex posts to create new roadway conditions. This is all about totally redoing everything from the sidewalk width to how the road was surfaced and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously, who could use it as well. Some resources, programs, and protocols. I'll sort of run through these pretty quickly. Move DC is the district's long-range transportation plan. That basically means the 30, 40 year from now vision of what the city's transportation system should look like. I will share a link to the surveys that you can take right now to help inform our 2021 update. The last time we had an update was in 2014. And so the 2021 update will be basically one of the really critical ways our planners and engineers sort of think about how to make changes in the future. When we think about a new bike lane project or where some other change needs to be made, we go to Move DC to see what was planned, right? Several years ago for that long-term vision. So I'll share that link afterwards. Just a quick plug for 311. Almost any time you're reaching out to me with a question you have about a sidewalk that's broken or even something urgent like a signal being out, anything like that, it's always best practice to send a 311 number with it. Oftentimes the service level agreement, which I'll talk about in the next slide, for those 311s are really long, but sending it to me, I can sort of learn more about what's going on with it on the back end and give you maybe more information than you get sort of from the 311 number and sort of the responses you get through your email. I think this is really helpful to sort of just set expectations and think about how service level agreements for different 311s that are DDOT services work. So feel free to screenshot or whatever if it's helpful to think about. As you can see, this ranges all the way down from two business days for traffic signal issues, all the way up to 500 for requesting a new tree be planted somewhere. That reflects basically how quickly our teams are able to process all of the service requests we're getting. Alley repair investigations and sidewalk repairs are, I know, ones where people are really frustrated by the long service level agreements, but those numbers really do reflect how many requests we're getting and how quickly our teams are able to process them all and sort of get to them, in the queue. This is the Pave DC website. Just wanted to plug that. I'll share the link for this as well. In a couple of weeks, I think 2, but don't quote me on that. It's not 100% sure yet. We'll update our Pave DC website with the 2021 paving plan. What you're seeing right now on your screen is the substantially completed 2020 plan. That's why all the routes are green. It's because we've done them all. When it updates to 2021, they'll all be red. And as we go through the year, they'll turn orange when we are literally in progress doing that roadway repaving or that sidewalk restoration, and they'll turn red once we finish. So I'll share the link to that as well, so you can look at see what it looks like. But check back in a couple of weeks for when the 2021 plan goes live. The traffic safety assessment process. I'm not going to go through all the steps here, but this is basically the process for requesting safety changes to a specific intersection or a certain block that you feel is having safety concerns. The highlights of the process are you need to submit a 311. You can work with your ANC commissioner, because they have to, your specific single member district commissioner has to, if you're a resident, has to sort of sign off on your request and kind of approve of it. They don't have to approve of anything you necessarily want to see changed, but it's just the fact that you want an assessment to be done. So you always have to involve your commissioner. And then usually we just kind of go from there, emailing with me back and forth to make sure that we have everything we need to properly assess it based on your understanding of what the issues are. And I'll share the link for all these steps as well. And here's my contact info. I think it was also in the agenda, so feel free to refer to that as well. And that's all I have. If there's any questions about the presentation, I can answer those. And then I guess after that, if there's any questions about, I don't know if there's time for that, but if there's other sort of general questions for me about DDOT, I'm happy to answer those as well.
So, hi, Andrew, this is Gigi. I did have a question about something that Councilmember Pinto mentioned, which was the pothole palooza. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Like, when did it start? When does it end? Or what the parameters are?
Sure. So basically, we have what we call a construction season, which is basically when the weather's warm enough for us to reliably do asphalt pouring and marking installation. If it's too cold, it doesn't work. And that basically starts in mid to late March, whenever the weather gets warm. So there's a couple of things we got going on this week because it's been so warm. But Pothole Palooza, the paving plan, which I went over, all that stuff kind of goes live, in a week or two. And Pothole Palooza is basically, I think it's basically a fun term for basically our street and bridge maintenance team going out and filling potholes starting in March. So there'll be a press release that kind of goes over, details about how it works. But I mean, it's not necessarily any different than anything else. You submit a 311. If it doesn't get closed properly, let me know. And yeah.
Because there's a really terrible one at E and 3rd. It's the worst I've ever seen. It's really dangerous. So I'll make sure to submit a request for that one. Thank you.
Yeah, and feel free to email me the number. And always when you're submitting 311s, make sure to include photos. There was a pothole request I worked on this week that the team went out. There was no photo. They filled a couple potholes that they found, but there were a couple other potholes that they didn't see that were the ones the resident was actually concerned about. So photos are always really helpful.
Got it. Thank you so much.
I have a question related to, it's kind of related to sidewalk repair. Usually the building or the property owner next to the sidewalk repairs that sidewalk or maintains that sidewalk. Is that correct?
No, not well. Maintains or repairs? You mean
like repairs if there's an issue with the sidewalk?
No, that's our responsibility if it's in public space. Another link I'll share is Property Quest, which is a website where you can basically look at all the property lines in the district. If it falls outside the property lines, it's our responsibility to sort of fix or repair. Adjacent property owners are responsible for things like snow removal. In residential streets, many tree boxes are sort of maintained by by adjacent property owners. And also, something that a lot of folks don't know is that, in most of the row homes on Capitol Hill with little front yards, those front yards are actually in public space. They're not private property, but there's sort of like I don't know the details, but since the 1880s, basically there's sort of a citywide agreement that, property owners maintain the plantings and all that kind of stuff in those spaces.
Right. And the reason I was asking that particular question is I've noticed that the materials that are being utilized to repair sidewalks downtown and in Chinatown, Penn Quarter area are not the same materials that are down there. We have, where we have granite, we have asphalt. Where we have pavers, we have poured concrete. And it creates an inconsistency. So is this a contractor issue with DDOT, or is this a DDOT employee issue?
No, it sounds like, there may be cases where it's a mistake, but what it sounds like is these are situations where we are basically, when we do within asset management, right, which is the folks that do all this stuff, we basically have a sort of a permanent repair team and a temporary repair team. And the temporary folks, they're called street and bridge maintenance. And basically their job is to make areas safe when there are holes or, tree roots interrupting the sidewalk, or potholes, right? Things like that. And they may go out and make the area safe, in a not pretty way. Whereas the permanent side of things, those folks will basically come up with a work plan for the year where they will totally redo a sidewalk, or they will, totally repave a roadway. And so, oftentimes it can take a couple of years for a sidewalk that has been made safe to get scheduled for pretty sort of consistent material permanent repairs. And so it sounds like that's what's going on. There certainly may be cases where permanent restoration, uses the wrong material, or a contractor, for example, or utility company does some digging, and their responsibility is to put it back the way it was, and they use the wrong material or something like that. And in those cases, you can email me and I can forward it to the public space inspections team to make sure that the permits, were followed.
Got it. Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of that occurring. And are these teams currently working, or are they not working because of the pandemic?
They're working. Everyone's on a modified work schedule. And I'm not intimately familiar with how that works. So things are slower than they would be, but I know they're a lot faster than they were, for example, last spring and summer, right?
Got it. And the other thing that I think it continues to be a major challenge that we experience is the modified parking rate pilot that happened downtown that has been made permanent, with the little posts all around and the little space numbers associated with those spaces. I realize that the parking now currently is not being enforced because of the pandemic. However, we have been asking for these signs on these posts to be replaced. And in the 10 block area around my home, where a lot of these signs are located, I bet you 90% of those stickers are missing. So residents and guests to this area, even though they're paying for parking, they have no idea what space number that they're parked at. And there was some discussion that happened that the parking people, there was a new contract that was being put into place or whatever. This continues to be a burden and a problem. And when the public health emergency ends and parking enforcement becomes prominent again, these signs don't exist. And we need to get that resolved.
Yeah, so frankly, I'm not very familiar with, I guess, downtown parking is something I'm not as familiar with. It's very, I started in Ward 2 a few months ago, but in Ward 6, this kind of thing doesn't really exist. So that's something that I'll need to follow up with the parking team on to sort of learn more about what's going on, and probably frankly connect you with them.
Great.
Because that'll be faster to sort of let you tell them what's wrong instead of translating through me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that'd be great, because I had sent requests in, et cetera, about these issues, and nothing seemed to have happened. And the time frame that you displayed there with your 300 and some 500 days was very disheartening to people that want to see services being recognized and being implemented. And I know that even when you put things into 311, oftentimes when they transfer it to whatever department it's being transferred, it's marked as closed, and you have no knowledge about what has happened with it.
Yeah, and that's definitely why I exist, to help, shepherd those things away from that. So.
Excellent, that'd be great. And we have Howard has his hand up.
Thank you, Michael. Andrew, just a few questions. I enjoyed your presentation. Mm-hmm. The first is about the car-free lanes. And you mentioned that, this is a quote that you said that you could see how expanded car lanes will be coming in like 2021 or 22. So just to let you know, we had a battle with DDOT last year. Commissioner Schenkel was very much involved. Councilmember Pinto, there was a proposal to make 7th Street. Yeah, we want that taken off the agenda, because it's totally unfair to have this sword hanging over our community. We do not want car-free zones. We want Uber, we want Lyft, we want delivery trucks to be able to go back and forth between Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. Okay, all the studies indicate that metro buses would only pick up 1 to 2 minutes in terms of the speed reliance, and we would like this just taken off the agenda, period.
Gotcha. Well, I know that you made your comments about the project clear, in the public comment period last fall, and I'll make sure the team, knows those are the same now. But I do just want to mention that, the 1 to 2 minute cost savings that a lane like this, would have on a single bus translates to, tons more minutes when you sort of break it down in terms of overall number of minutes, right? Sort of minutes saved by all the commuters going, using those bus lines. So I think that's just important to keep in mind, that, buses carry a lot of people, and those cost savings, translate much into a much bigger number than, similar ones for private vehicles.
Okay, so we'll agree to disagree, and we don't want another battle royale with DDOT, but we will. This community is totally opposed to it. If your job is to represent to the constituency of Ward 2, you make sure that you tell Acting Director Lott that we are ready to do battle with DDOT if they bring this proposal up again, period.
Sounds good.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to point out, you mentioned in terms of the functions of DDOT was permitting dockless e-scooters is one of the functions that was on your list. And you also said adhering to the provisions of the Americans for Disability Act. Arguably, those are in contradiction. People who are handicapped, people who are in wheelchairs, people who are on crutches have great difficulty of these dockless bikes being strewn over sidewalks, creating enormous hazards. People have been sent to the emergency rooms and hospitals, and we would hope Mr. Maruthian was a big supporter of these micro-mobility devices. We think they're dangerous. There's a law downtown, they're not supposed to be used, but there's no enforcement. DDOT is really culpable in its support for this, and I would hope that Acting Director Lott will reverse the policy of Mr. Maruthian. Okay, this is a position I think is very unified. We are tired of going out on our sidewalks and being frightened to death by these dockless e-scooters.
Yeah, I think, I think DDOT's confident that we can continue to have a dockless scooter and bike program and maybe even expand it, while also making it less likely that they interfere with pedestrians and people with disabilities using the sidewalk. I'm actually temporarily disabled right now. I had surgery on my ankle, and I have had a couple of times where there's been a dockless scooter in the way when I'm trying to get out of the car to get to the doctor's office, and that's why I'm happy, that the city has last year rolled out a ton of new bike and scooter parking corrals, both in street and on the sidewalk, to encourage people to park them in the appropriate place. And I think that's the best solution that we've come up with and want to expand in 2021.
Thank you, Andrew.
Michael?
Sorry, we have one more hand up, and that is Thomas Lee. And I think this will be the last question that we can take for DDOT.
Michael, you didn't see my hand up.
Thomas, can you go ahead?
Yeah, this is Thomas. I also want to speak to the e-scooters. I do use them, and I want to speak in favor of the one particular brand. They are the Razors. They have the larger wheelbase, which I think makes them safer and more stable. But the way that their docks are set up, it's essential, almost like an A-frame. They make them a lot less harder to tip over. I'm always finding myself writing up the other line and other scooters that always fall sideways. But I never have that problem with the Razors. They're always very stable and very sturdy, even when they're parked, because of the particular way that they're designed. So maybe that could be part of the solution to the mobility and obstruction issue of these scooters falling aside and becoming a hazard for pedestrians.
Yeah, and it's definitely a new program that's only in year 3 or 4 of existing in the country. So these are the kind of things we want to hear from the community on when we update our regulations, which we did a few months ago, and I'm sure we'll do again in the future. So if you wanted to get connected with our sort of micro mobility point person, she could probably sort of give you a better idea of sort of how to formally let the agency know that that's something that you think is important, that scooter operators think about, or maybe even are required to do. So I'll put my email in the chat afterwards if you want to email me for more information.
Thank you.
And I would encourage others, if you have questions for Andrew, to please email him those questions. And thank you so much, Andrew, for presenting this evening to us. We really appreciate that. And we would also welcome Interim Director Lott to come to one of our meetings in the future. That would be something that we would very much like to have happen.
Yeah, I know he's trying to get out there, so I will. I'll take that back. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We would like to move forward with local community events this evening. And is someone here for the Marine Corps Marathon?
Yes, I am.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Sure.
I would like to share the map of the proposed course, if that's possible.
Please.
There we go. Can everyone see the proposed 46 Marine Corps Marathon map?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jared Klein. I am the operations coordinator for the Marine Corps Marathon. I'm here to discuss our impact to ANC2C. The Marine Corps Marathon is a nonprofit, non-appropriated organization of the United States Marine Corps with headquarters on Marine Corps Base Quantico. The marathon itself is the largest single-day public relation event for the Marine Corps, and our goal is to promote physical fitness, generate community goodwill, and showcase the organizational skills of the Marine Corps. In the email I sent to the commissioners, I included a copy of this race course, as well as the 5 W's of what the marathon is all about. The largest area of impact to ANC2C starts on 15th Street Southwest. It turns right onto Madison, left onto 3rd, right onto Pennsylvania, right onto 1st, right onto Maryland, right onto 3rd, left onto Jefferson, and then left onto 14th Street, where we then exit on the inbound lanes of the HOV. 9th and 12th Street tunnels are not affected during the proposed course, as well as I-95, 395, 695, and the Northwest Southwest Freeway are not impacted. Setup will begin at 5 a.m. on Sunday, October 31st, 2021. We would like to begin at 7:15 a.m. with our 50K athletes, and then the marathon and 10K will begin at 7:55. The first marathon athlete is expected to arrive within ANC2C around 8:30, and the last one is expected to finish or exit ANC2C around 1:10. We generally then allow behind our rear pace for a cleanup crew to return ANC2C back to the way we received it. So we usually allow them an additional 30 minutes with rolling road openings as we pass certain points along the course. And we coordinate with the police as well as our blocking vehicles. Seeing that it's COVID, I'll address the elephant in the room. And that is that we will be, of course, coordinating with DC, Virginia, the Mayor Special Event Task Group, as well as fire, police throughout the entire year as COVID is ever changing. Last year, when I originally presented to ANC2C, I believe it was January, and there wasn't a single COVID case, and we received approval. Of course, things changed throughout the year of 2020, and originally we had many COAs on the board. Obviously, the full event was taken off, and then went down to a reduced event, then a further reduced event, and then a virtual event. So we'll be examining the COVID situation throughout the entire year, but we're hoping that based on this proposal, we can get a approval letter from ANC2C to be sent to the Mayor Special Event Task Group for the marathon, which will take place on October 31st. At this moment, I'll open up for questions, concerns, or comments.
Jared, how many people do you anticipate? I know this is going to be hard to judge with the pandemic that just happened, but what are you anticipating?
So right now we are planning 3 or 4 different courses of action, right? We're starting our planning with the largest, right? 30,000 expected runners or finishers for that matter. And of course, we'll always be communicating with our partners. And if it has to go down further just to meet, their guidance, we will do so. But in a normal year, it is expected 30,000.
30,000, right? And this is a qualifying course, right, for other marathons. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
There is no qualifying to access our marathon. We are, of course, known as the People's Marathon, where anyone is welcome to run our events. But many people do use this course to qualify for other events.
Got it. And I know this is a very low impact to 2C in our process. And other commissioners, do you have questions for Jared?
I don't. I remember this presentation from before, so.
Awesome, yes.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah. So I'm glad that you guys are back on track for it.
Me too.
Thank you.
I guess I would just have a question about how we're going to make clear, and this maybe is a question for Michael and Gigi, but how we're going to make clear that, we endorse this, assuming that all protocols are followed, that the amount of people is minimized based on risk, whatever it is at the time. I don't want to give a blanket approval when we're, I doubt we're going to be following up and being like, is X, Y, and Z followed, if that makes sense. So that maybe is a question for you, Michael, or Gigi. But I think generally, assuming those protocols are followed, this makes sense to recommend.
So absolutely. Yeah, that's a fair point, Ellie. The Marine Corps has been a pretty good partner for the last, I'm not sure how long they've been doing it, but they've been doing it for a while, I think.
Oh, wow.
So I think we can be fairly confident that they're going to make sure that they do the right thing. But I don't have a problem if we want to word the letter with some sort of with those provisions in it.
Sure. I think that is perfectly fine to do so. And I would like to make a motion that we send a letter of support.
I'd second.
Thank you. And include in that letter of support, I'm sorry, and include in that letter of support the provisions related to COVID concerns. And that is a second, Gigi?
Yes.
Great. And commissioners, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Awesome. Terrific. So we'll send the letter of support to that activity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next on our agenda is, Ellie, do you want to talk about
Yeah, this will be very quick. Basically, Congresswoman Norton's office reached out to us, me, Michael, and Gigi, and asked if she could present for about 45 minutes about the work she's been doing. And we thought that would be appropriate to have as its own event. So you all will have time to ask questions and she'll have time to fully present that. So we're basically going to host similar to what we're doing now, but a separate event on, where's the date? March 23rd. So we picked Tuesday at 6 p.m. based on, the fact that people tend to be available at that time for this meeting. I think Michael already created a Zoom link. We'll put that on our website, but you could also just email me and I'll send it to you. So yeah, just mark your date, mark the date down if you're interested in that. And then also, this isn't on the agenda, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. I'm just going to post in the chat some fire safety tips that were passed along to us. Michael, I assume that's fine to just add in there. So we were sent some fire safety tips from the fire department as well, and I just wanted to pass those along. So I'll do that now as well.
Awesome. And I have placed in the chat box for March 23rd, the Zoom link registration for Congresswoman Norton's engagement with us.
Great, thank you, Michael.
I'd like to move on to alcohol beverage licensing at this point. I want to quickly provide two updates to the commission. We had protested Chinatown Market ABRA 019616. We came to a resolution with the Chinatown Market late last month, and we withdrew our protest based on the existing agreements in place and some of the activities that the establishment had already conducted based on our feedback of them. Additionally, the ANC at our last meeting, addressing the issue of Equity H LLC, Bulldog, ABRA 117308. There was concerns about their outdoor cafe hours of operation. The establishment did revise the hours of operation based on the ANC's recommendation, and per the ANC, I sent a letter of support for that license. At this point, I want to call Mr. O'Brien, who is representing farmers and distillers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm also accompanied by Lara Hardcastle, who is a Senior Vice President of Farmers Restaurant Group, which is the parent of Farmers and Distillers. This is regarding a sidewalk cafe, an ABRA sidewalk cafe application for Farmers and Distillers, which is on the southwest corner of 6th and Massachusetts Avenues, facing Massachusetts Avenue. This matter was before the commission in August of last year for consideration of the public space permit, which was granted. and issued in December. So this is the ABRA parallel of it, because both ABRA and public space have to approve sidewalk cafes. Now, a lot has happened since we filed this application. We filed the application, I think, in December, when it was believed that the temporary streetery authority that's prevailed during the COVID emergency would end as soon as the COVID emergency ended. There's nothing definite, and it seems to change day to day. But at this point, it looks like that the streetery authority for expanded sidewalk cafe seating is going to extend somewhat beyond the cessation of the COVID emergency. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the authority under the emergency is broader than the authority we're seeking here today. Mm-hmm. So one could argue that if the present streetery becomes permanent, then our application today becomes moot. But at some point, we all hope things are going to return to normal. And that's why we'd like to have this in place for when it does return to normal.
Mm-hmm. And so this is that sidewalk area that we're talking about on the north side of the restaurant. Is that correct?
Correct. Facing Massachusetts Avenue. Most of it is terraced.
Right.
Okay. Let me ask Lara. Lara, are there any tables presently on the sidewalk itself?
Yes, under the winter streetery program, there are. Those mm-hmm. would discontinue it once that program is terminated.
Because the permit that we have now that we're seeking ABRA approval of does not encompass actual seating on the sidewalk. Am I correct?
It does not include seating on the lower sidewalk, just on the upper raised plinth area.
Right. Which is kind of removed from the sidewalk area. If you think about it, as you would come down there, you would assume that would be part of the establishment itself.
That was the point that the representative from DDOT made.
Yeah.
You can't always tell where the property line is, and in fact, that terraced area is public space.
Is public space. Got it. And there's no residential buildings in the vicinity of that restaurant there, or hotels.
Well, there is a hotel catty corner, the Hampton Inn on the northeast corner.
Right.
And Laris told me, and I was not aware of it, there are actually 2 townhouses on I Street behind the building.
Oh.
But those are totally sheltered or screened by the building itself.
Right.
So there's no danger that any noise from the sidewalk cafe facing Mass Avenue could reach around the building to those townhouses.
Terrific. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Could you just remind me the hours? I didn't look while it was up on the screen.
The hours that are sought are 11:30 to 11:30 during the week, 1 a.m. on weekends. And those are the hours that were presented to the commission in November, I believe. Now, neither Lara nor I participated in the presentation last August. Mm-hmm. But these hours are carried forward from the public space permit.
Okay, that sounds fine to me. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Then I'd like to make does the community have any questions? I'm sorry. Then I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter of support for farmers and distillers, retailers Class C, change to their license to include the permanent sidewalk cafe.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. Good night.
I appreciate it. Good night. Thank
night.
you. Next, we would like to, the next item on our agenda is Taste LLC, Urban Roast at 916 G Street Northwest, an expansion and substantial change to the retailer's Class C tavern license. This establishment, I do not believe, has officially been placarded yet. But we wanted to pull that to the table here. Is Sedone on? I know that Kamal is here.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Kamal is here as well.
Terrific.
And just to answer your question, no, it has not yet been placarded. We anticipate that we will be on the register this week. And I'm sorry, this week, and then get our placards next week.
Got it. And you want to tell us what your plans are?
Absolutely. So for everyone who doesn't know, this is an establishment that's currently operating at 916 G Street. And this specific application is for an expansion. I believe Kamal, he's here, Kamal Azus, the owner, and I believe he's had multiple communications sort of with the residents and with those at the Mather Studios, but this is for an expansion to use of the premises for the second floor. So he would like to move forward and we would like to request a stipulated license in order to operate that in the event that we get our certificate of occupancy in time to do it. We've been for this ANC, I think, a couple of times on this application for the license itself and for the Sidewalk Cafe. We likely will be here regarding the expansion of the interior space. Just in terms of when I say expansion, I'm talking about expansion of hours for the interior space. And this is an establishment that opened during COVID. So things have just kind of been fluctuating. And my understanding has been from commissioners and other residents that this has been a great asset to the community. They've been doing well. Residents like them. And I think, and Kamal is here somewhere. And I'd like for him to tell you a little bit about what he plans to do. I think he has, with the landlord, given a presentation to the condos upstairs, but I think he can expand a little bit more regarding how he plans to operate the second floor. In terms of the application itself and what we've submitted to APRA, I just want to say that we did request hours of 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. For closing, and Kamal will tell you a little bit more about that so that we can bring some understanding to the community. Kamal,
hey guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to speak about the second floor. The second floor unit will be used as an extension overflow dining room for Urban Roast. Obviously, when this pandemic is over, our temporary patio won't be as big as it is now. So we just need an extra dining room space with a little more seats and things like that. The reason we're looking to extend our license hours is just to prepare ourselves for the future to offer late night food and drinks. We also want to show sports games and boxing and UFC fights, not on the second floor, on the first floor, but it's all under one license and space. Those West Coast basketball games don't start till 10:30. They don't end till 12:31. And even like those pay-per-view boxing fights, the main card fighter doesn't come on till 12 o'clock as well. So I just don't want to cut ourselves short by closing before the main event or closing in the fourth quarter of a Lakers game or something like that. So our concept is not to be a nightclub. We don't want to have a DJ or anything like that. I'm willing to work with our residents at the Mather and come up with a community agreement that benefits both of us and just kind of protects them as well, just because our concept is not to be anything like a nightclub. It's literally just to, just to kind of have more, take advantage of more sales late night and just being open late night as well.
Right.
Great. Thank you for that. And I know that the change, just to let the other commissioners know and the community know, is, correct me if I'm wrong here, we're changing from a license that currently closes at midnight, I believe, that we'll be expanding that to 2 a.m. weekdays, 3 a.m. weekends. And we would be then adding the second floor, which dining room, to that license. Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it. So those are the choices that the license as it is proposed right now. And I know that you, the building, Mather Studios, which I see people on here from Mather Studios, have been engaged in discussions with you regarding a community agreement, and some of the concerns that they have around the second floor operating close to residences in that situation. And so I don't know, does anybody, the commissioners, do you have any questions?
So I was wondering, is that a typical time for this area, for a place that's near residences, to close at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m.? I don't.
So we're in a commercial zoning area. We're right by Capital One. There's a lot of late night places around us as well. Our plan is to not stay open ever at that time. It's more of the fact of, when things do, get out later, if a concert ends later, things like that, because we are in that area, we do want to take advantage of that. And that's why I'm willing to kind of like come up with an agreement with the community, as in, what's a more flexible time, obviously not at 12 or 1, but definitely not at 3 a.m. either. So just to kind of coming up with something that can work for us and work for the community, so we're all on the same page.
Right. And I also just want to point out, I think, from my experience, and commissioners, you can also chime in, that the concern is usually entertainment, and there's no entertainment here. And I just want to make that clear. He is not seeking any entertainment on the first or the second floor.
Got it.
Michael?
Yes.
This ANC has been consistent requiring certain hours for everyone. And it doesn't matter what they're doing, if they're a restaurant or a bar, if they're serving food and serving alcohol, you've required specific hours on weeknights and on weekends. And it seems to me that if you are insisting on being consistent before, you should just be consistent now, or allow everyone else to change.
This would, so we are consistent with the outside seating time when they are close to residences. We typically do not restrict a universal time inside with residents, with establishments, unless they are within residential building. And then we want to negotiate that with the residents of that building. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, quick question.
Go
you can go ahead. Ladies first.
I appreciate that.
Hi, Haley.
Hi there, Michael. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Good. Thank you very much for holding this meeting. I appreciated, as a resident of the last 4 years in the Chinatown area, it's been wonderful to be able to be here virtually. As a resident of Mather Studios, I wanted to advocate on the behalf of Kamal and the Azuz family. And I wanted to know whether or not this would be the appropriate forum to talk about the positive enhancements that they have brought to, one, our building, and to our community. And so if it's okay, I'd like to to go ahead. I won't try to take up too much of your time. Thank you. So I've been living in Mather. I've been there for nearly 4 years. And as a part of the community, we have gone under significant growth. And obviously COVID has been challenging for many people. But most especially, I have found that it has been very challenging for the Azuz family and Kamal especially. When they created Mather, these businesses within Mather Studios, District Eats, and Urban Roast, they've changed significantly in their original plan, specifically because of what happened because of COVID. They had original plans to try to make it a very, very quiet area for people who were normally a part of businesses to be able to go into their place of business, to be able to get coffee, to be able to get bowls, acai bowls and things like that. And they've had to adapt to be able to survive. And one of the ways in order for them to survive is being able to open up the sports bar. As a resident of Mather, of course, I would be concerned about any type of noise, and especially those within the first and second floor specifically, because there are places of residence where people have purchased these homes and have been residents there for over a decade. However, in knowing the Azuz family personally and been able to work with them on a personal level, I really wanted to advocate for the possibility for them to expand their business. I think that it's a wonderful idea. They have greatly provided a really wonderful atmosphere, especially in times of the pandemic. I've seen firsthand when I leave and enter into my place of residence, how much they've been able to bring, and what it has been a terrible, terrible year for so many individuals. They've tried to adapt. I've seen them work firsthand with our board, making sure that if there's any noise complaints, they've made our entire area significantly safer. We've had a lot of issues with theft. We've had issues where people have been hospitalized because of altercations on the street. I've known Kamal to literally bring in our packages. Not only that, but in order for him to be there from the start to the end of business, he's actually become a resident of Mather. And I think that he is one of the biggest advocates for a safe community for our building, even though he's a renter. I understand that there is a massive worry for people who have invested in the building. I've invested in myself as my first big purchase when I was 27 years old. I know that this is not something that is lightly taken. And I know that at the end of the day, he will always work and advocate on behalf of our business. And I would hate to think that anything that we would do as individuals who are a part of this community would affect a small business who have just been able to survive. And I know that this is a way for them to continue to do so. That is all I have to say. I apologize for my impassioned approach. I've come to love this family very, very dearly. I respect my fellow tenants in this building who've also become a family in the last 4 years. But just wanted to say those words to try to advocate for a small business who've just been trying to make things work for themselves over the past year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Haley.
Hi, I'm John Gann. I'm the board member of the Mather Studios and a resident of the building. We are going to, at our next board meeting, which I think is now going to be rescheduled for the middle of next week, create a new committee to help develop this community agreement. So anyone who is in the building who has feelings and would like to help come up with a list of concerns and issues we can bring to Kamal, please join us in that endeavor. But I had a conversation with Kamal on Sunday, and he's very willing to sign a community agreement. He is very aware of some of the concerns of residents, and I believe that these can be addressed through the community agreement.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any other? Brent, I saw that you lit up there while Haley was speaking, and you wanted to say something.
Yeah, John. No. John addressed it. I was just curious as to when the community agreement would be discussed or talked about or what have you. That's all.
Got it.
I would just, if I may.
Yes,
I would just like to request that if I assume if we're working towards a agreement at this time and the ANC needs to vote, that and I'm assuming it's going to be a vote to protest it, until we get a settlement agreement in place, that you could also put in language in your resolution where if an agreement is reached, that you would submit a letter of support to the ANC for us to operate on a stipulated license.
Correct. So what I think that I would like to do, if this is if just is in agreement with the commissioners, I would like to send a letter of support for Taste LLC at 916 G Street for their stipulated license. And I would like to recall this case at our next ANC meeting, which is April 13th, to determine if a settlement agreement has been reached between Mather and the establishment. And at that time, I think the ANC would make a decision on a letter of support for the permanent license or a protest at that point. So this gives some flexibility, I think, for the establishment and Mather board to work together and residents to work together. If all the stars have lined and DCRA and ABRA all come together at the same time, and they are able to open and expand during that time, they could, but we would then want to work toward that community agreement.
Michael, should we ask one of the representatives if that's a good time frame for them? Because I don't know how far along they are in this community agreement process, if they expect to have something by a month from now. So I don't know if anyone could speak to that.
Hi, this is Johnny, and we hope to. Our board meeting, which we can officially inform this, is probably going to be next Wednesday. We hope to have something. I believe we could do this pretty quickly.
Okay, because
tomorrow's responsive, so
we could always readdress that. I just wanted to make sure it was in the right ballpark before we do that. So Michael, I agree with doing it that way.
I just wanted to make sure, is there anyone else in this meeting from Mather that has any other comments that they'd like to make? Okay, that was my only.
Actually, I do. Thank you, Gigi, for asking. I'll just briefly turn on my video. I don't want to stay on video too long. I also am in support of the family. I am very much in support of a community agreement to protect all of our homes. And so far, so good. But I do border a wall with what will become the overflow seating and potentially another bar. So thank you for extending the time to create a space where everyone can be sure that their home life and business life succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will just comment that I dislike the word protest when we think about what this means from a community perspective and from an ANC perspective. The protest process, if we were to go down that process, is a place that brings the two parties together in a mediated session with the ABRA board and a board representative and the whoever protests a license. And it allows you to talk about and negotiate a potential settlement to an agreement. Ultimately, the decision to issue a license is that of the ABRA board, which will ultimately, if we go to a hearing of a protest, they would make the decision on moving forward with this. And the idea would be that we would want both sides to have resolution with their desires to expand their business, and the community, the residents of Mather, to be able to ensure that there was some safeguards in place for noise and things like that. So I don't want people to think that protest sounds horrible, but it's a way that we can protest that we can force a mitigation of some sort in this process. The other concern I think that should be raised is the concern that with a license like this, if the business were to be sold in the future, or the license could in fact transfer to the sale of that, and we would not have a Kamal or the family engaged in that business. So this is a protective feature for the community to implement. It should not be seen as a penalizing mechanism in any way. So I just want to put that out there. And the ANC would be very supportive of helping either party in the development of the community resolution as well.
Thank you.
So with that, I would move that we send a letter of support for the stipulated license only and recall at the next ANC meeting on April 13th to assess the status of that community agreement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
So so that passes 3-0-0. We will send a letter of support for the stipulated license to Abra. So, and hopefully the process of all the openings will be in alignment, and this will allow the establishment to at least open while the protest period is underway.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone from Mather and Kamal for attending tonight.
Thank you guys. Good night.
I would like to call Sharuri LLC. I probably said that totally wrong, Sammy. And you may be on mute.
Shinwari LLC.
Samardi LLC.
Yes.
For a new retailer's Class C restaurant license, Abra 117478. Hi there.
How you doing?
Very well. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do? And
thanks for giving me such a prompt hearing, and I really appreciate it. And basically the concept over there is it's a Pakistani, Indian, like Afghan kind of restaurant, a very cultural. I have two of those down here in Virginia. Actually, I'm sitting in one right now. You can Google it. It's the same kind of concept. A lot of bread, a lot of kebabs. And also, we want to see if we can get a liquor license. And, while we are in the process, the average gentleman, he, was very kind. He told me, that we talked to the ANC while we are in the process, because the process has gotten a little longer during the pandemic. If we can get a letter of support, and that's basically it. And we like to work with the community, and we like to offer a very good, hospitable place. And we're renovating the place. The place has been there forever, and we want to keep it open.
Awesome. And this is on the north side of H Street, isn't it?
It's on the north side of the street. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
on this side, right? Like right by the alleyway there.
Exactly.
That
There's alley. Yes.
That goes through, right? Terrific. So we
It
are.
used to be the Eat First restaurant before.
Got it.
Yeah.
Eat First. Terrific.
Michael, can you just say where it sound didn't come through as well for the gentleman's speaking. So can you tell us what this restaurant is and where it is?
Sure. It's a Pakistani, is that right?
Yeah.
Concept. There you go. Thank you so much.
I went ahead and shared the screen right there. So you could see the hours, the location, and the description on that.
And
actually, you can't. It's just the first page.
That's all of the license that there is.
Oh,
it's 1 out of 1 page, as it says right
on the top there. I was looking at the bottom under hours of operation.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's above. I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is right beside it's right adjacent to the Wall-Luck House.
Oh, okay.
In the building adjacent to the Wall-Luck House.
Thank you.
So, and any other questions from community or commissioners? Then I would like to send a letter of support for ABRA 117478 for their ABRA license.
Seconded.
All those in favor? And I can't see Gigi.
Oh, sorry.
There she is. Awesome.
I'm here.
Thank you so much.
I would also like to make a motion to send a letter of support for the stipulated license for this establishment so they can open during the protest period.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. So the motion carries 3-0-0. Thank you. We'll get that off to ABRA and we'll send you a copy of that.
I really, really appreciate it, Michael. Thank you so much. And just hope to see you all there soon.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll be there.
Please visit. Good food there.
Kebabs and bread right up my alley.
Tandoor, fresh tandoor bread. Yes.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I would like to move on to transportation and public spaces. We have Capital City Brewing. Is Matthew with us this evening? Oh, I see Matthew Bernhardt. There he is. I think you're on mute there.
You're on mute.
The famous mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can't tell I'm a little new to this, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time just because this is the first time I've ever been to one of these meetings and doing a presentation. So I also want to apologize, Mr. Schenkel, because I sent you kind of a panic email today because I was unaware. I got the invite over the weekend. My personal family matter I had to take care of, and I got here and I was like, oh, presentation, and I kind of had a bit of a freak out. And I was trying to access my information through the portal for the DDOT, and I was having a lot of difficulty, and I was afraid that I'm not going to have anything to review with you guys, and so somewhat disregard the one email. But really, we're just we're applying to do a new sidewalk cafe along 11th Street along the facade of our building. Nothing, spectacular or fancy. Just to be honest, with COVID, we know that even as restrictions loosen, there are going to be just a number of people that just aren't going to be comfortable being inside. So we're at least trying to give an option, for them to be able to dine in a 30-year-old, DC kind of institutional restaurant, and just kind of maybe increase our footprint a little bit.
Terrific. And I'm just going to, I'm sorry, I did not see your email. I feel really bad.
It came today. When I got it, I literally saw it and I went right to our portal, and I'm just being transparent as honest as I can. It's just been such a challenging process, and I'm sure it's challenging for everybody. I didn't even, and mostly it's my fault because I just don't know. I didn't know the difference between a parklet and a Sog Cafe, and you kind of see what everybody else is doing. And, we, kind of closed once all this happened. So I just started blindly, applying for everything that I could. And they were like, you can't do this, and these are separate. So I even in the process of downloading things in the portal, I'm afraid I'm making mistakes. I believe we have everything in there that we need, but in simple, it's just really a plan to go down 11th Street and add probably 8 tables. I think that's what's on the plan. And then just service it from the restaurant.
Right. And I'm just going to, if I may, I'm just gonna pull this up for us. This is your plan, correct?
Yeah, that we actually sent a more detailed one because there wasn't enough. And this is me again, just being transparent. It could have also been. I'm getting the temporary, also sometimes confused with the permanent one. Mm-hmm. So in essence, that's it. I mean, the parklet would be in green. I combined them all together, and then the part of the top part of the page is going to be the one that's along the building.
Right. So we're actually, the parklet is actually because of the expanded public health emergency, we're talking about the ones right along the building.
Correct. That was initially when I had no idea what I was doing. I just included everything.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. No problem at all.
I now know that you guys don't do that part. So
yeah, we don't do that part. That's perfectly fine. So, and what are your hours of operation outside?
So outside our hours of operation are 11 o'clock until midnight on weekdays, and then Friday and Saturday rather, the hours of operation just extend until midnight. We're a traditional beer and cheeseburger place. We've been, next year we'll celebrate our 30th anniversary at that location. So, not crazy. We're not doing live music. We're not, there's no amplification. We're not trying to install a sound system or anything like that. We're really just trying to expand our outdoor footprint just to allow people to feel more comfortable, kind of after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, just to clarify, so it's midnight every night, or was there a difference between the
It's midnight on Sunday through Thursday, and then it's actually, I apologize because we've been closed for a year.
That's okay.
Give me 1 second here.
Sure.
I have notes. And I'm a little oddly nervous, but
don't worry.
What's the restaurant?
Yeah, so and I apologize. So it's going to be midnight Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday it's 1 o'clock. Right now, our current liquor license allows us to serve until 2, but just for us, there's no market at that time. So we've never, in my history for the last 5 years, have really ever stayed open later than that. We're probably more inclined to close earlier than we are to stay open late.
And Michael, is 1 o'clock I know we have the different standard for outdoor than indoor. Is that in line with that?
Yeah, there are no residential buildings in that location, I believe. Hold on 1 second.
And I think I heard someone asking, I believe I heard Mr. Benkert say it's a burger restaurant. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, once upon a time when we first opened, we were actually the first brew pub in DC since the history of Prohibition. We had moved our brewing location to Virginia, and actually it was another one of our cap cities that we had to close. And prior to COVID, we were looking at putting a brewery in Virginia, but things changed. So, but in time, we're just, we're just like nothing fancy. We do burgers and beer.
Thank you. And Michael, you're just checking there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So you're right across from the. Let me see here. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah.
Capital City Brewing Company's right behind the bus station area.
Correct. Yeah, we're in the same building. Correct. Like right across from us is this is so horrible.
It's
on the corner of H and 11th.
H and 11th. Right.
It's been there for years. No.
And that is a location that does not have residential buildings around it as well. So I think that's great. I don't have a problem with the hours of the establishment going till 1 during the weekends or Friday and Saturday.
Should I do a motion of a letter of support?
Sure.
Okay. I motion to send a letter in support of the ABRA changes for the outdoor seating.
Second.
We're actually just approving the sidewalk. So if I strike ABRA from that and put DDOT in, we'll be okay.
Thank you. I figured I'd take a shot at it. See,
yeah, that's great. That's totally great. So see, Matthew, don't worry about it. We're just.
I'm new too. We're fine.
Exactly.
No, all right.
So is there a second?
Second.
And all those in favor for the letter of support?
Aye.
Okay, so we passed 3-0-0. And so I'll send that letter of support off and I'll send you a copy of it, Mr. Bernhardt.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And yeah, Mr. Just disregard those emails.
I'm so sorry that I don't.
No, it was me. I was in a full blown panic and I thought, oh my God, we're going to lose our ability to get up to open this thing. And I was a bit of a freak out this morning. I'm better now.
No problem. No problem.
Have a relaxing rest of your night.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Terrific. At this point, I'd like to call under Planning, Zoning, Environment, and Historic Preservation, 600 5th Street Northwest, Square 487, Jackson Graham Building, the redevelopment.
Hi, Michael. This is Katie Lenz. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, you may, please.
Good evening.
Good evening. And sorry, I did not attend your intro meeting with us previously.
Oh, no problem at all. We had great company with Gigi, so.
Fantastic.
So this is the WMATA building.
This is the WMATA building, yes. So thank you all for your time this evening. We're really excited to be here. My name's Katie Lenz. I'm from the Rockefeller Group. Also joining us is our joint venture partner from Stonebridge, Jane Mahaffey, who's a principal at Stonebridge. I believe she's somewhere out there.
I am. Good evening.
Probably hiding off camera.
No, I put my camera on for you, Katie.
Nice. Okay.
Yes, so we're here to present the initial concept plans that we have to date for the redevelopment of the Jackson Graham Building at 605th Street. I'm gonna skip ahead here. Just by way of background, so Stonebridge and Rockefeller Group, we were selected by WMATA to enter into a 99-year ground lease and redevelop their existing headquarters that they have occupied since its construction back in the 1970s. We executed documents with WMATA back in October of 2020, and then we kicked off our concept design shortly thereafter. I'll skip. I won't bore you by reading through the narrative. I think everyone has access to this presentation. Is that right? That they could go back and reference, or I'm happy to make this available after.
We can make it available to anybody who wishes to have a copy of it.
Okay.
As part of the process, yes. The commissioners all have copies.
Okay, great. So first, just to give everyone a little bit of context, I'm sure you're familiar with the site if you live around here in the neighborhood. It's a full block site between 5th and 6th Street and then F and G with the National Building Museum and Judiciary Square directly to the east, and then Cap One Arena directly to the west. Here are a couple photos of the existing building. You'll probably remember on the east facade here, on the east side as you face the National Building Museum, the entry plaza, there's this sunken plaza as you go into the building. You might remember last year, unfortunately, there was a fire in the building. There's actually one of the Google images showed that. And then again, here views from all of the different angles as well. So I won't belabor that too long. I think everyone's familiar with the building. I put this slide in here. It's an aerial view looking north out over Judiciary Square. And the reason I put it in is I think it's important to look at where the Jackson Graham building sits in the context of Judiciary Square. And as you can see, as you look around the square, there are all of these buildings that really frame the square. And Jackson Graham building is one of those. And so one of our priorities as we get into design is to make sure that the resulting building is respectful of the surrounding buildings within Judiciary Square and respond to what's going on around them from both a massing and materiality and color standpoint as well, but also being mindful of everything that's going on west of the site with all of the vitality and vibrancy and everything going on in Chinatown. Again, just another image kind of showing this framing around Judiciary Square. No, we don't need to belabor that one. And then here's some of the existing buildings around Judiciary Square as well. And these massings, we can come back to these if anyone wants to look at them, but I wanted to skip ahead really to a rendering. This is a rendering of the east facade of the building looking out over toward the National Building Museum. And so you can see, hold on one second, just high level programs. So we're currently planning about 420,000 gross square feet of commercial office building with about 14,000 square feet of retail along the base here that will wrap around the south as well as on the northwest side of the site. The plan right now is to reuse the existing structure. This was important to WMATA from a risk mitigation standpoint. The red line tunnel of the metro runs diagonally through the B3 level of the parking garage. And so from a preservation of the tunnel and mitigating risk of heaving and any damage to the tunnel, the safest course of action is to preserve the existing structure. And so we plan to redevelop this into a new office building. It will be demoed down to just the core, the concrete structure. And so that will be all that remains. And of course the below grade will remain in place and be freshened up, but essentially the same below grade. But so above grade, it will be demoed down to just the structure and 3 additional floors will be added. And you'll see in this rendering, once you reach the 11th floor, we start to step the building back. And that's intentional so that when you're down, experiencing the building from the ground plane, when you're in the context of the rest of Judiciary Square, this way, when you look up at the building, it kind of fits in with its surroundings and doesn't feel too tall or imposing from that angle. Let's see, what else was obviously I mentioned the sunken entry that you currently experience when you go into the WMATA building right now. This whole area, there's quite a grade change from the southwest corner as you walk down 5th Street toward the southeast corner and then wrap the building. And hence the reason this drops down. And then there's this sunken area to enter into the building. So one of the plans is to bring this up to grade so that there will be no steps down into the entry. And as you wrap the sidewalk as well, it'll be just a gentle sloping down. And so all of the retail as well will be accessed directly from grade and you won't have to drop down. From a schedule standpoint, I just wanted to point out, so WMATA plans to vacate the headquarters in December of 2022. And so the earliest we would commence construction would be January of 2023. And it's about a 2 to 2.5 year construction timeline. So the building would be complete roughly mid 2025. I do want to show, this is another rendering standing on the southwest corner as if you're at the Shakespeare Theater looking across the street. One of the things we've done, given that we're taking the existing structure, we've endeavored to carve into the structure in order to create some architectural intrigue. We've also added these sculptural terraces so that once tenants occupy the building, these areas will be, liven up this, not only the building, but also, I'm sure you've experienced on 6th Street, this whole side of the block is quite dead most of the time. This is kind of like the back door to Cap One Arena. And so one of the priorities is really to add retail along here and really enliven this whole section of the part of Chinatown. Here's a view from that terrace. And then here, I wanted to share the ground level plan. So 5th Street over here at the top, 6th Street at the bottom, F and G. So the idea is that we would have a lobby that connects through from the east to the west, a central core. As it's currently designed, the building has a western core, so we're going to relocate the core to the center. All of this area in orangish red, this is all retail, so about 14,000 square feet of retail spread between the southern part of the building and would wrap around up here on the northwest corner as well. And then the existing curb cuts to enter both the underground parking garage, that would remain, as well as the location of the loading and trash and everything else here, all of the north side of the building, that general location will remain the same. The other thing, as far as landscaping, all new hardscape and landscape, we're programming the retail, we're designing it in a way that depending on what retailers are interested in leasing this space 3 years from now, we're quite a ways out. We are building as much flexibility as possible, including all the black iron that would be needed for a restaurant user. We're also creating these elevated terraces here so you could have plenty of outdoor dining, both on this eastern area, looking over the National Building Museum, as well as on the south side of the building and wrapping around to the west. This is a typical floor, which I'm guessing isn't too relevant or interesting for this group. And lastly, just this is our typical enclosure. You'll see here the red portion of the building that's highlighted. That's what this enclosure represents. The idea is that we would have solid spandrel panel up every 2 floors, a mullion in between. And then what you see here, we're calling a pilaster element. So when I mentioned being respectful of Judiciary Square, one of the things that we wanted to create with this pilaster element, it's almost like a screening element so that from the outside looking in, it will look very solid to kind of work itself or to jive with what's going on in the rest of Judiciary Square with a lot of limestone, concrete, and other materials are very solid, not a lot of glass. And so from the outside looking in, we wanted to create some solid materiality, but from the inside looking out, it will have some perforation of some sort so that from the inside experience looking out, you can you see beyond it. And here are just some precedent images of what that could look like as far as that screening element.
Any of those?
No, we're super early in concept design, so these are just precedent images of what it could look like. And then this one is a color palette. So again, trying to fit in with the rest of the context of Judiciary Square with the limestone around the entry facade and all of these, very beige, oyster-looking colors that fit into the context of the surrounding buildings. And then lastly, I have some just preliminary renderings of what the landscaping experience would look like. There's a picture here of the before on the bottom right. And then up here on the left, you see much more hardscape, this elevated terrace for potential dining. The entry to the building would be here. This is on the east side. And then, of course, lots of lush landscaping as well. This is just a different angle of that same rendering, showing some of the water features that are planned. And then from the northeast corner looking south. I think I'll stop there. I don't want to go too long. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Would it be appropriate to open it up for questions at this point?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I did the whole mute thing. I'm sorry. Yes, go for it. Commissioners, do you have questions?
I don't.
No, not at this point. If someone raised something, but it all looks good to me. I just wanted to clarify, are we sending a letter? I know it's so early in the process. So is this the purpose to get feedback, or are you looking for a letter of support? I'm sorry if I missed that.
I think both. We are looking for feedback, and we plan to go to the Commission of Fine Arts later this month. And so we have filed our concept package with them already last week. So a letter of support would be appreciated.
Great. Thank you.
I actually really kind of like the design that is here with the glass and the buildings to the south, and thinking about the Shakespeare and the Capital One Arena. You know, it kind of, those areas, I think the vertical lines really kind of flow nicely with this, and the coloring as well. I saw the one slide, a couple slides back, you showed a wood finish.
Oh yeah, let me go back to that. The wood would just be the underside of the soffit. This one, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
That's just when you're standing at the ground looking up at the building and you see those terraces, the underside of the terrace, the roof, that's where we would have a wood soffit.
I gotcha. So it's kind of the image right behind you in your background kind of would resemble standing on the street and looking up at the building.
Exactly. You can actually see
Katie, if you go back to the rendering, you can actually see it a little bit if you sort of point towards the terraces.
Yeah, let me go back to this one. Here, this was an example of where it would be here and here. This kind of orangey brown glow. This would be a wood soffit with uplighting to illuminate it at night. It would give it kind of a nice warm glow.
I actually did have one other question. Could you just touch on what I know you mentioned the timeline with construction, but I assume that this would be, during the normal hours, those types of things. I just want to address that preemptively in case anyone had concerns. Also, this isn't really a residential area, right, at all. Am I correct on that?
Correct. There's a little bit of residential to the north, but you have the Building Museum to the east, the fire station to the south, and then Cap One Arena and Shakespeare Theater to the west and southwest. So as far as construction and sequencing, as of right now, we would not intend to do any after hours construction. I have to say though, it is so preliminary.
Yeah.
Right. I don't even really feel comfortable talking about that. All we know is that we're, somewhere between 2 and 2.5 years to go through the tactical demolition and then the redevelopment of the property.
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Are there questions from the community?
Yes, Michael.
Hi, is that Joanne?
It is Joanne.
Okay, gotcha. Go for it.
Hi there. First question. You did show an image in the beginning of the plan for the area around the building museum with specific building heights. And that is an area plan that was adopted many years ago by the National Capital Planning Commission, I believe. So I'm asking you, does your building height fit into the requirements and limitations of that plan, which I think was your first slide?
Yeah, hold on, let me try to go back.
You might want to show that slide again, not that slide.
Sorry, it's just a little slow. I think you're referring perhaps to this one.
That does show, and that's why all those buildings are built to a certain height and then set back before they go up another 2 floors. It was part of the plan, and it seems like all but this. Oh, you can't see my finger. The middle building on the west side is the only one that somewhat violates it, but that's because they saved a building on the corner. So, but that image specifically really does outline how everyone did fit into your plan. Does your building fit into that same plan as to building heights?
It doesn't fit exactly. So,
well, why not?
Well, my understanding is that was never adopted, but we have had multiple meetings with CFA staff, and we have discussed this topic with them. The project
what about the National Capital Planning Commission? Fine Arts did not adopt anything, to my knowledge. Now, I'm old and I've been around a long time, but I thought that ANC2C had adopted this. Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm talking about like 2 decades ago, maybe
right.
More.
I'm familiar with
a really long time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interested in hearing the speaker's answer. Do you mind repeating yourself, Katie?
Sure. So as it's currently designed, what she's talking about wasn't officially adopted. However, we are being respectful of what's going on in Judiciary Square. We have had multiple meetings with CFA staff, and height is a topic we have discussed. The building by right can go up to 130 feet, but that is one reason, because we are on Judiciary Square, that the design steps back because we want to be respectful of all the buildings surrounding us. Jane, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I know height is one of your favorite topics.
Favorite topic? No. Yeah. So Katie's right. Based on the building and its surrounding, we have the ability to get to 130 feet. In discussions with CFA staff, as well as with looking at the designs around. As Katie has said, one of the things that was we wanted to do was to allow for that step back. So this is actually a slide that looks at that she has here, sort of the first initial stepping back, which occurs to sort of stay within the context of the Judiciary Square. And at each level above that, the building does step back.
And
I'm a bit confused as to which block of these on either side is your block, because you didn't have north on top for the images of your site plan, but north is up on top, which is pretty normal.
This is north. Yeah, this is looking north. And Katie, if you go to maybe to the rendering, which is on.
Can you just point out which is your building on this?
Oh, of course. It's this one here. It's the one at the northwest corner. And so we're just on the we're adjacent to Judiciary Square, but.
I know now. Thank you. It's great. Thanks.
And my question is, the building, it seems to me, like from my memory of walking there, it seems like the building to the south of the WMATA building is taller currently than WMATA.
It is much taller. That's correct. I actually have some slides. They're not in this deck. I'm happy to share them with you that show the heights of all the surrounding buildings and how our proposed post-renovation height compares to that, and where all the step backs sit so that it works within the context of Judiciary Square. But you're correct. The building directly to the south is much taller. There's actually the fire station between that building and the north and Fifth Street. But yes, you're correct. That building is taller.
Got it.
Personally, it sounds to me like this is something that's been paid very close attention to and is being addressed. Thank you, Joanne, for raising that issue. But I don't need to see any additional slides on my end. I don't know if Michael and Gigi feel differently, but I think that is a good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel very comfortable with this design. I think it adds, it stays with the whole framing of the Judiciary Square and the design of the neighborhood there. I think it looks very pleasing. So,
well, I'll say that Katie, you already know exactly what I think. We discussed it in your presentation with me. So thank you again for that. So I'm very pleased with the design and looking forward to seeing how it comes to fruition in the next couple of years.
I'll let the architect know.
Yeah. So
feel free to come back. Obviously, if there are any major changes, we'd love to give feedback, or if something important occurs, be in the loop on that, just since this is so far out.
Absolutely. We'll keep in touch.
So I would like to send a letter.
Michael, excuse me, I have a question.
Oh, sorry, Howard. Yeah.
I don't see so this is for Katie, this is dealing with a historical marker that now exists at the southeast corner of 6th and G at the current WMATA headquarters. That's a location where Adas Israel Hebrew Congregation, then known as Adas Israel Hebrew Congregation, was founded, which is one of the largest conservative Jewish congregations in Washington, D.C. Subsequently has moved several times. but there's a plaque there. It's not a great plaque. You have to know ahead of time what you're looking at because it's in very small type. It's very hard to read, but I know it's very important to the Jewish community here in Washington. That was the congregation met on top of a restaurant, I believe, that was at that corner. Subsequently, the first home of Otis was moved several times. Now it's over at 3rd and G Street, and it's part of the Capitol Jewish Museum, which will open next year. So I would urge you could contact me, or you could contact the Greater Washington Jewish Historical Society to make sure that there is proper recognition for the fact that this was the first home of Otis Israel Congregation, which I also serve on the board of Otis Israel. Thank you.
We will absolutely. You said it was on the southwest corner of the site.
The southeast corner. Well, it would be the northwest corner of the site, but the southeast corner of 6th and G.
Got it. I understand. I'm going to go look at that tomorrow. I haven't seen it, so thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Mm-hmm. And Suzanne, I'm sorry I missed your hand.
That's okay. I'll make it very quick because I know it's late. Katie, this looks gorgeous. I look forward to seeing this come to fruition. Something that's happened in my end of the neighborhood, I live on Indiana Avenue, is we've gotten more and more skateboarders. So I'm sure you guys have already thought about how you will handle that in your finishes outside and deterring the skateboarders from ruining the finishes you guys have chosen. So I just thought I'd make that input very quickly.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I will add that to our next design meeting with our landscape architect to make sure that we are we deter some skateboards. Sorry, I do.
Right. And not just the physical deterrence, but also determining the finishes in terms of removing graffiti. That's been a real issue for us.
Definitely. Right.
Yes, it's a problem everywhere with our projects, I must say. I just finished one that has a nice ramp down, and we get the BMX bikes also. So that actually adds to the black marks everywhere. But there are some ways to design in, and we'll be looking at that as we go through our details. Thank you.
That's awesome.
I recommend dirt and big pebbles. They hate it.
So I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter of support to the Commission of Fine Arts Historic Preservation Board for 600 5th Street Northwest, Square 487.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And finally, I would like to call Capital Crossings LLC the notice of intent to file a zoning application, stage 2 PUD. Christine.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you. We had a brief presentation. Do you want me to share my screen, or I had sent it to you as well? I'm happy to share my screen. I have it up.
Go ahead.
But whatever you prefer, yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do it, and then I can control the...
Yep.
Perfect.
Please let me know if you're seeing Capital Crossing Center Block.
I am.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for having us. We have several people from the developer, from Property Group Partners on the line, as well as representatives from the architecture firm that is designing the second stage PUD, INEAD. Tom Wong is going to follow me after I do a brief introduction. So the ANC has changed a lot since we originally came to the ANC back in 2008, 2009 to talk through this project. I'm going to go to the next page. Okay. So the project is located south of Mass Avenue, basically between 2nd and 3rd Street, Mass Avenue and E Street. And this is what it looked like when we first started talking to the ANCs about it. I will point out to you that ANC2C and 6C splits right down the center line of this freeway. So pretty much for every element, we come both to you and to ANC6C to review the project. Again, it was quite a scar in the middle of our city, and it was very exciting with the idea of coming back to reconfigure this and reconnect the street grid. So again, here, Mass Avenue and E Street, Mass Avenue and E Street. So with the original project that was brought forward and that was approved back in 2011, the intent was to create 3 new city blocks. Again, Mass Avenue is going to be on the left. The north is typically on the left in these views just because it's such a long site. So this is Mass Avenue. The intent was to create the north block, the center block, and the south block, and to reconnect to the extent possible the street grid. So G Street would go through the site at 90 feet, and it would include primarily pedestrian and bicycle access. And then F Street would go through for vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle. It would go through at the L'Enfant stated 100 feet of right-of-way. And so we went through a PUD process, and in 2011, the Zoning Commission approved the site plan that you see on the screen. The Zoning Commission approved a consolidated planned unit development for the north block. This consisted of 2 sides of office. It was basically 3 towers bisected by a pedestrian way, which is lined with retail. Then here is G Street. This is the center block, and the Zoning Commission approved a first stage PUD for the center block. It included a residential building, an office building, and then reconstruction of the rectory and annex for the Holy Rosary Church, which used to be located in here. The south block is the final first stage PUD part of it. It included an office building, and that it included facilities for the Jewish Historical Society, and the synagogue building that was just being mentioned was to be relocated right here. And again, this was a first stage PUD. So in the original PUD order, again, consolidated for the north block, first stage for the overall PUD, and that first stage PUD established both the compliance with the comprehensive plan, and it established the amenities and benefits for the PUD. And there are significant amenities and benefits that came with this PUD. First and foremost, the primary benefit was the creation of 3 new city blocks and 2 new streets. This is a fairly elaborate platform being constructed over an operating highway. It involved significant utility and infrastructure work, as well as relocation of the portals for the 395 highway. I will say, when we went through the PUD process back in 2010 and 2011, we estimated this to be about a $200 million amenity. As of today, it's at a $315 million amenity. So pretty significant amenity. 2 other major amenities that came with the PUD included the reconstruction of the Holy Rosary Church facilities, as well as the reconstruction and relocation of the Jewish Historical Society facilities. There were a lot of agreements that went to try to make this work, and all of those commitments have been fulfilled or will be fulfilled in the next month or so. The project also had major environmental benefits, innovative design features. You see those eco chimneys through the pedestrian way, filtering the air from the below grade garage and the below grade facilities. It had LEED platinum for all the commercial buildings, LEED gold for the residential buildings, centralized loading and parking. And I will point out that for this entire site, you have 2 parking entrances, one here off G Street, one here off 3rd Street, and that accesses the below grade parking garage that has been constructed underneath the entirety of the project. And then you have a single entry for loading for all 3 blocks, and that is a centralized loading area. It comes on and off of East Street. Continuing on with a couple of the benefits, for the residential benefits, there is a commitment of 50 affordable housing units that will be delivered with the residential building. And then there are a variety of other benefits, such as a donation to Casey Trees, which has already been done, certain types of capital bike share, and then reserved space for the an innovative tech industry. So that's kind of the amenities and benefits. So we are here today to talk about the 2nd stage PUD, and I'm going to show you where we are today. So this is an aerial photograph, and it's really exciting to see how different this looks from the first photographs. So here is Mass Avenue. This is the North Block. You can see the pedestrian way coming through. You can see that those buildings are constructed. Here is G Street, which has been constructed. You can see the platform right here for the center block. And right here are all the Holy Rosary Church facilities that have been constructed. You can see the platform for the South Block office building. And then you see here, this is where the Jewish Historical Society, their facilities are going to be constructed. This is the relocated synagogue building. And JHS is actually pouring concrete right now for their facilities. So just to let you know, Holy Rosary Church went through a 2nd stage PUD, got approved, it's fully constructed, it has a certificate of occupancy. JHS, fully approved, 2nd stage PUD, under construction. South Block, fully approved, it has a 2nd stage PUD, and it's in for, or it is going in very, very soon for building permit. And so the final 2 buildings are what we're gonna talk about now, and that's gonna be the residential building, and then the commercial building. And I was remiss and I didn't say that about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we got flexibility for that office building to allow it to be a variety of types of commercial use. And so one of those uses is hotel. And so that is where we are today. We're presenting a hotel for this office, this commercial building, and a residential use for here. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom Wong now to talk about the site plan and the design of the buildings. And again, we have not filed our application yet. We have submitted our notice of intent, which means that we will file our application no earlier than 45 days following that notice, so sometime in mid-April. This is an informational presentation. We were able to give an informational presentation to Commissioner Nelson as well. We're just here to bring everybody up to speed, and then once the application gets filed, we'll come back, but would love comments and thoughts tonight. And with that, I will turn it over to Tom, and I will continue sharing my screen.
Thank you, Kirsty. Good evening, everyone. We're happy to be with you today to present to you the design of the center block. You can see on the right some early massings, or the massing of the current design, which complies with the 1st stage PUD massing. And I'm going to show you the development of the architecture. So if we go to the next, as we focus in on the center block, you can see the 2 buildings, the residential building on the left, a 12-story building, the hotel on the right, the square footprint, also a 12-story building. And both of those buildings sit atop a 2-story podium, and that podium is shared. I just want to point out in the site plan that in addition to frontage on G Street on the left, F Street on the right, the 2nd Street frontage has a unique condition in the sense that there is a portal, an exit portal from the I-395 highway. So we'll come back to that and what that means for the design. Go to the next. As I mentioned, there are 2 stories of podium that sit beneath these 2 uses. Here you can see that first ground floor plan, which is a mix of retail in the orange, as well as the hotel lobby in yellow, and the residential lobby in light blue. And partly the goal here is to create activation along all the frontages to have retail activating and bracketing both entries into the hotel and the residential building. And you see that happening on F and G, as well as a portion of 2nd Street. If you go to the next, the upper floor of the podium is the continuation of some of the amenity spaces for the hotel. as well as an amenity space for the residential building in blue. As Christy mentioned, we have a hotel here depicted in yellow at 222 keys, and a residential building at 166 units in total of a mix of studio, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. As you can see there in the counts, 50 of those units across that mix are the affordable type. Combined with the podium, the proposed the proposed floor area is 441,085 gross square feet, which is underneath the allowable FAR there you see at the top, 465,000 and change. If we go to the next,
Tom, can I ask you a question? Back at that other picture, when you talk about the podium, is that the first 2 floors there that is kind of in the orangey color?
Correct.
Okay, so this is sitting on top of that.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
One of the big design drivers for the design of the center block is really to integrate with and complement the Capitol Crossing development as a whole, as well as to provide a real complement to the entire neighborhood. And we like to show this as the first image because it shows how we're thinking of the residential building as a set piece at the end of this north-south block passageway on the north block. So you can see on that diagram on the right, that passageway terminates basically in the residential building and the hotel's north lobby. As a result of that, what we've done to the architecture, if you go to the next, is inflected that residential building to give it a little bit of receiving of that north-south axis to create a little bit of space, a spatial definition on G Street. And you see the residential building doing that. Below that, you see a very active streetscape. In the center is a double height space that is the north entry to the lobby or the hotel lobby. Beside that are a mix of retail that are really activating the street frontage, as well as the residential entry lobby, which is right to the left of the hotel entry. If you go to the next, we can talk a little bit about the materials here. Again, the goal was to try and complement the existing palette, but have something timeless here. So what we have included is a mix of solid and glass. The solid is primarily a polished precast concrete, which we think is very noble material. It's complemented by a series of accents such as wood, a little bit of painted aluminum. If you go to the next, you can see a zoomed in close-up of that hotel lobby, double height space. You can see it's supported by this pier that reaches up and holds the cantilever of the residential building above. The residential entry is off to the left there. As we turn to the hotel, this is now the view from F Street, and the hotel is that volume, which is basically a kind of gridded facade that demarks each of the hotel rooms and each of those units. It also sits and sort of floats above this podium piece. The major feature along F Street is the double height entry into the hotel lobby on the left, as well as a ground floor retail, likely a restaurant or other amenity that is part of the hotel directly to the right of that. If you go to the next here, you can start to see some of the articulation in this hotel facade. We wanted to give it a little bit of life and activity, so you can see a canted panel that is a ribbed textured glass that sits next to the windows of the hotel rooms. And that canted panel has a bit of a random texture and it moves around in the module of the grid. You can also see the balconies of some of the rooms on the corners. As I mentioned, actually, if you could go back quickly, Christy, one slide. The 2nd Street frontage is where the exit portal is for the I-395 highway, right? So we have come up with a special treatment right in the middle there so that we can concentrate the retail in the most viable places. The retail does wrap the corner and the glass does wrap the corner on F and G onto Second, but right in the middle, we're proposing something that's slightly more solid, which you see in this elevation, which is, again, the texture is the polished concrete, but it has a texture to it that's built into the profile of this facade. And it's combined with a bronze panel that you also see on the hotel. And that's only in the middle section of that Second Street facade.
Is that retail there too?
Here's a view of the hotel from F and 3rd Street. There you see the Holy Rosary Church and the rectory behind it. Again, the coloring of the hotel is meant to be a kind of complement to the lighter tones of the church. And then finally, some of the materials in the hotel. Again, we're thinking of a bronze panel that acts as the grid structure, or the facade's grid structure, that is accompanied by the same polished precast concrete. And then on the right there, you see that textured glass that is a little accent in the hotel room facades. On the roof, again, the residential building on the right, residential building on the left, hotel on the right. We are including fully compliant penthouses to activate the roofs here and provide some amenities to both of these buildings. If you go to the next, the hotel has a restaurant on it. This is now, the plan is turned, so the restaurant actually faces F Street to the south, colored in orange, and a terrace area that surrounds it to comply with the setback requirement, as well as some mechanical space. At the residential building, there again, the amenity in orange facing G Street to the north, which is an enclosed area. There's also some open amenity here, a swimming pool and a little covered terrace. This also has mechanical space behind in the gray, so that the residential building and hotel building mechanical space back up to each other. Finally, one of the other features of the residential building is a series of balconies. There you see a typical plan on the left, where balconies are on the bottom left and the upper right, about 50% of all the units having balconies, and you can see how those are rendered in the facade. As Christy mentioned, we are targeting LEED Platinum for the hotel still, as well as LEED Gold for the residential building.
And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Thank you.
I'm so excited to see this project underway, and I actually walked by there today and saw the concrete being poured at the Jewish Historical Society. It was like, yay, concrete in play. So what is the, can you tell me a little bit about the process? So you're applying for a PUD 2.
Yes, so we have the first stage PUD approved, right, which is kind of the biggest part of it. It's establishing, the massing, the density, the heights, the amenities, the compliance, and then we come in for basically, it's essentially a design review. We'll file an application. As I said, we'll file it in mid-April. It will be considered by the Zoning Commission for set down. Once they give their initial comments, they'll then schedule it for a public hearing. And then they are only required to take one vote as opposed to 2 votes. It doesn't have to go to, for example, NCPC or anything. All of that has already happened. And so then it would be, once the public hearing goes through, then it would be approved. And then at that point, after the order is issued, PGP can then move forward with building permits.
Got it. Got it. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I don't have any, thanks.
No, thank you for the presentation. It looks great.
Yeah, I think it looks great too. I'm excited about the retail, and the fact that we're getting a new residential building is fantastic. And I see
the environmental factors as well. That was good.
And I see we have Howard has his hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. It's a beautiful project. I bike through there all the time. Very impressed with the craftsmanship here. My questions, and I think that one of the speakers mentioned the portal, the 395 exit portal going northbound. That's a lot of noise. Those cars and trucks that are moving up the hill, so to speak, from the tunnel to surface, they're gunning their engines going up that hill. And so my question is, how are you going to handle these noise issues? That's been a big discussion tonight, noise. There's the street musicians' noise, and there's also street noise coming from cars and trucks. And how are you addressing that issue? And the second thing is that we were very excited when we heard that you were going to have these street extensions like G Street going through, but the GW Law Center is blocked. Those excess of those, you take people up to 2nd Street, and then if you cross the street, you can't go any further. They have iron gates, and they're locked now because of COVID. So maybe you could talk about those two issues. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Jason Spencer from PGP to talk about, I guess, Tom or Jason to talk about the noise consideration. With respect to the streets, when we had the PUD approved, it was always understood that, property group partners could only bring the streets over to 2nd Street, and that at some point in the future, if they could reopen through Georgetown law, they would have to go through that as a separate process because of how those streets were closed. And so that is something that kind of has always been unfortunately understood, that the more that we can open them, the better it is. But that's the configuration today based on the street grid. Jason or Tom, do you want to say anything about just kind of the planning for how you treat with city noise?
Christy, I'll defer to Tom on how the material selection along 2nd Street has dealt with the noise.
Right, so that's partially why we're proposing that stretch of the middle part of 2nd Street, as I described, to be slightly more solid. We do have a high performance envelope here, and that is really part and parcel of the LEED goals. So in the hotel, we're planning on getting triple glazing. There will be operables in both the hotel and residential buildings, so people will have the option to obviously open their windows. So I mean, those are the primary measures that we're using to mitigate the sound. It is obviously an urban building. And like all urban centers, including New York, where I live, you get used to the kind of noise of urban sounds.
Yeah, I think also, Tom, from a program perspective, you've put most of the back of house functions kind of along 2nd Street, whereas kind of the more public facing ones are either along F and G streets or more towards the west side of the buildings.
So. Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
I just want to thank you for retaining the residential. I was told by someone, and I cannot remember who it was, earlier this week, or well, last week now, actually, that you were eliminating the residential. And I said, oh, Jesus, never mind what I really said, but that will do. So I'm very happy that you kept the residential, you're keeping it, and as part of the project, because I think you have a true mixed use project, which is wonderful. And I look forward to seeing it. When will you be actually starting construction as opposed to demolition? When do you anticipate? I shouldn't say when you will. It's always a question mark. But when do you think construction itself, rather than demolition, will begin? Somewhere. Give me just a year. I don't need any real specificity.
Yeah, well, we have about another year of design left to take the images from where you see them now to transform them into construction documents, and then it would take probably another 6 to 9 months to get the construction permits. They'll allow us to start construction, and then of course, we're going to have to reevaluate the economy. Where things are. Hope things are looking better now, but we don't know what's going to happen. So I think the earliest that would be able to start would probably be around January 2023.
Okay, well, I just hope whatever happens that you do keep as part of the mixed use, the residential. I know that's always the most fragile of the components in a mixed use project, unless you have a theater, that becomes even more fragile. So I think it'll really help the neighborhood on that side of the freeway. Well, on both sides of the freeway, really. So more power to you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. And Christine, I guess at this point for us, it is just a wait until your application and final designs are filed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So as I said, we're going to file in April, and I anticipate the Zoning Commission will consider us for step down probably in early June. And what we would like to do is, once we get the feedback from the Zoning Commission as well, then schedule a formal presentation to come back and say, this is what we're going to put forward at our public hearing, and have the ANC take a vote on it at that point. But it sounds like we've gotten some good feedback from everybody in the community, and we'll continue to work with you all, and obviously keep you informed when we file, and then coordinate to come back for another presentation.
That's fantastic. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for hanging in with us until the end here. So I appreciate that. Is there any other items of business? Gigi or Allie?
Do you want me to circle back to the treasurer's report?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
My bad.
Okay, that's okay. So there were 2 disbursements in February, $25 for the ANC security fund, and then $175 for the minutes. So the beginning balance, and of course I wrote it down, and hold on, let me get my other on the page. Okay, so the beginning balance was $57,417.09. Those 2 disbursements totaled $200, so the ending balance should be $57,217.09, and that's the treasurer's report.
Awesome. I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I would second.
All in favor?
All in favor.
Yay, thank you.
If anyone has any additional thoughts or issues, feel free to email any of us, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Bye.
Okay.